Good evening, everyone. I hope everybody is doing great. Just a second, please. Let me see any questions that might be there. क्या बात है यार? Attendance in the class has reduced because you are not able to chat. That is why, is it? No questions. I was expecting some questions because, I mean, we discussed some complex issues last time. I was expecting कुछ questions होंगे. Ruchi, if you can, please enable the chat if you can for some time. I'll just see if there are any questions that somebody wants to ask. Please enable the chat for some time so that I can see. I'm audible? Yes, I think I'm audible. Yeah. Chalo, let's start our class. There are a few questions. I'll answer them. So, welcome everybody. Good evening, everyone. I hope everyone is doing great. Let us start our class. There are a few questions. I'll answer them first, and then we'll get straight away into our discussion. First question. Shantanu ka question hai. Shantanu is asking, a liquidity trap can occur under which situation? Expectation of inflation, unwillingness to hold bonds, preference for saving for first option, preference for savings. For first option, if there is a possibility of inflation, RBI will increase interest rate to curb inflation. Dekho Shantanu, I cannot officially answer this question as of now because we have not yet discussed interest rates, relationship of interest rates and inflation, RBI's monetary policy. We have not yet discussed that thing. So officially मैं इस चीज का आंसर अभी नहीं कर सकता हूँ. Let's wait for some time. Let's first understand the relationship of interest rates and inflation. Then it would become easier for us to answer. फिर भी मैं आपका पूरा पढ़ लेता हूँ आपने जो लिखा है. If there is a possibility of inflation, RBI will increase interest rate to curb inflation. Yes. Hence, it will not create liquidity trap. For second option, people are selling their bonds. Second option क्या है? Unwillingness to hold bonds. Yes. Therefore, they know that in future interest rate will increase. Hence, it will also not create inflation. For the third point, people are interested in savings and not interested in investment. Therefore, it can create liquidity trap. Am I right, sir? No. Liquidity trap, Shantanu, is described by the situation. देखो second situation क्या है? How did we describe liquidity trap? I hope everybody remembers. This was a speculative demand for money. The relationship between interest rates and speculative demand. We discussed an inverse relationship. What is it that we discussed in this state? यहाँ पे हमने क्या discuss किया था? When R reaches R minimum. Everyone please pay attention. We'll be able to revise something of what we did last time. What did we discuss happens when R interest rate reaches R minimum. जब R minimum के पास interest rate आ रहा होगा. Let's say interest rate right now is here. If interest rate right now is here, this is what our speculative demand of money looks like. Interest rate decreases further, this is what our speculative demand of money looks like. Interest rate decreases, this is what our speculative demand of money looks like. At this level, there is an infinite speculative demand of money. That means just a minor change in interest rate. Merely the interest rate falls by a very, very small amount and our speculative demand for money increases almost infinitely. It is, as we say, it is infinitely elastic here. I think I did not use this term last time, infinitely elastic. I'll explain. बता दूंगा मैं भी क्या होता है. Infinitely elastic here. But the point is, how did we describe this situation? यहाँ को हमने इस situation को कैसे describe किया था? Nobody is willing to hold or buy bonds. Nobody is willing to hold or buy bonds. Why? Because holding assets or buying assets is expected to lead to capital losses. It is expected that at this stage, if you buy bonds, if you hold bond, future में losses होंगे. क्यों losses होंगे? Because everybody at this point expects interest rates to rise. And when interest rates rise, your bonds will become cheaper or your assets will become cheaper. Therefore, everybody expects कि future में there are going to be capital losses. Hence, the liquidity trap situation would be described by option B, as you said. Option B के अंदर क्या है? Unwillingness to hold bonds or willingness to sell bonds. This is what liquidity trap looks like. Sir, isn't the statement soft money is isn't the statement soft money is high in supply but low in demand is wrong? I'm thinking that since soft money is needed for exchange of almost all commodities, then it is not low in demand. Am I right? Yeah, ये question I think last time is also you asked this question, but I don't exactly remember. I mean, whoever has asked this question, I don't know the name. Please, whoever has asked this question regarding soft money is high in demand and high in supply and low in demand, please tell me a little bit of context. थोड़ा सा context कहीं पे दे दो, एक line दो line का context दे दो. Just from wherever you have read, just give me the link. Please give that link to the coordinator. She'll send it to me and I'll just have a look at the headline और हो सकता है मेरे को उससे कुछ context पता चल जाए. So I'm not able to get the context in which this statement you are asking. So please let me know the context. I'll be able to better explain them. Next, Aditya का question है, sir, you gave an example that a person earning 5 rupees on 100 rupees and another earned 5 rupees on 105 bond. Then why people speculate on interest rate will fall in future? They will simply put 105 in bank, more secure. They will earn surely more money on 105 in bank account. So Aditya, let me quickly explain this. And while explaining answer to this question, I'll be able to revise, we shall be able to revise speculative demand quickly. फटाफट आंसर डिस्कस करता हूं मैं शुभम आपका. Everyone pay attention. I'm going to quickly recap what we did last time. We discussed the concept of speculative demand of money, speculative demand for money. What was speculative demand? Money demanded in excess of transaction demand. This is how we defined it. हमने इस तरीके से define किया था. Money in excess of transaction demand. You fulfill your transaction demand. You have limited amount of money. Whatever your income is, for example, your income is 50,000 rupees. So your money is limited by 50,000 rupees. This is the total amount of money available. 50,000 rupees. Out of 50,000, 20,000 is used by you for transaction demand. The remaining amount, money over and above, in excess of your transaction demand is called speculative demand. So 30,000 rupees here is called your speculative demand for money. Why do we call it speculative demand for money? Because this 30,000 rupees is something which you have to speculate upon. This 30,000 rupees is something which will be decided what to do with this money. It will be decided based on some speculation. You do not know for sure what to do with these 30,000 rupees. There is some sort of speculation in your mind how to use these 30,000 rupees, the extra money over and above that 20,000. If this 30,000 rupees is kept as 30,000 rupees, agar 30,000 rupees, if this 30,000 rupees is kept as money meaning either in form of cash or in form of bank deposit. If it is kept as money, then we say speculative demand is 30,000. Versus if this 30,000 rupees is used to buy some asset, 30,000 rupees or some part of it is used to buy some asset which you expect will be profitable for you in future, then we say speculative demand of money has reduced. From 30,000 rupees, you use 20,000 rupees to buy bonds. You use 20,000 rupees to buy land or gold or stock of a company. So from this excessive 30,000, now you have used up 20,000. How much remains? 10,000 remains. 10,000 is your speculative demand for money. I hope this is absolutely clear to everybody. We discussed this in detail last time. So money in excess of your transaction demand is called speculative demand. You had 50,000, 20,000 was used for your transaction purposes. Out of the remaining 30,000, 20,000 has been used by you to purchase some asset, some government bond. So this has been converted into an asset. Now you no longer possess 20,000 rupees. Now you possess assets worth 20,000 rupees, 20,000 rupees. You don't have 20,000, you have assets worth 20,000. There's a difference between these two things. How much money do you have now? You have 10,000 rupees over and above your transaction demand. So this 10,000 rupees that is left with you is called as speculative demand. इसको बोलते हैं हम speculative demand. Money in excess of transaction. Now, the decision to buy assets from that 20,000 rupees, from those extra 30,000 rupees, is dependent upon your expectations. Whether you will buy assets worth 20,000 rupees or not, or will you buy assets worth 30,000 rupees or 25,000 or 15,000, your decision to buy assets from the money in excess that you have over and above your transaction demand depends upon your future expectation of asset prices. Whether you decide to buy assets depends upon your future expectation of asset prices. If you expect asset prices to increase in future, then you will buy assets. If you don't expect asset prices to increase in future, you will not buy assets. In that case, 30,000 rupees will be remaining with you like 30,000 in form of rupees only, in form of money only. They will not be converted by you in asset. Why? Because you do not expect assets to appreciate. Therefore, you will continue to hold those 30,000 rupees in money form, not in asset form. Why? Because you do not expect the assets that you will purchase from that 30,000 to appreciate in future. Versus if you expect appreciation of assets, then you will use the extra money that you have to buy assets. As much as you can, you will use that money to buy assets because you expect prices of assets to increase in future. Next, your expectation about asset prices, whether they will increase or decrease in future, is dependent upon interest rates. Asset prices have a direct relationship, as in inverse relationship, with interest rates. If the prevailing interest rates in the market increase, then asset prices are expected to fall. If interest rates decrease, asset prices are expected to increase. हमने वो सब discuss कर लिया था. That I am not going to discuss today. Relationship between asset prices, bond price, and interest rate. If interest rate increases, bond price or asset price will fall. If interest rate decreases, asset price will increase. Relative, remember, I hope you remember that thing. Relative value of asset will increase or decrease based on interest rate. अगर interest rate ज़्यादा है, the asset will have to be, if interest rate is more, then asset's price will decrease. Why? Because now asset is, sorry, if interest rate is more, asset price will decrease as compared to earlier. Why? Because now asset is relatively lesser valuable than before. जितना valuable पहले था, पहले asset यहाँ पे था, interest rate यहाँ पे था. अब interest rate क्योंकि increase हो गया है, because interest rate has increased now asset is relative to other instrument, that is savings bank, asset is relatively less attractive. अभी भी ज्यादा attractive तो है, लेकिन relative attraction कम हो गया है, and therefore asset price will fall. When interest rate increases, asset price falls. When interest rate decreases, now asset price will increase. Why? Because now the asset is relatively more attractive. So interest rates and asset prices, we have discussed the relation. And hence, your decision to invest those 30,000 rupees will depend ultimately upon your expectations of interest rates. What do you expect? Interest rates will go up or interest rates will go down in future? If you expect interest rates to go up in future, then your path is clear. If you expect that interest rates will go up in future, that means you also expect asset prices will fall in future. And therefore, you will today not invest in any asset because you expect asset prices to fall. Versus you expect interest rates to fall in future. आपको लगता है today interest rates are very high, so you expect them to fall in future. You expect them to fall in future, therefore you expect assets to become expensive in future. Assets will become more costly in future. Therefore, what will be your decision today? आज का decision होगा, आज ये decision होगा that let's buy assets today because interest rates are going to fall in future and hence asset prices will increase in future. So your decision today is dependent upon your expectations about interest rates. Whether interest rate is expected to increase or decrease. What do you expect interest rate to be? आपको क्या लगता है interest rate increase होगा या decrease होगा future में? This drives your expectations about asset prices. I hope this is clear to everybody. ये हमने last time discuss किया था, डिटेल में, काफी डिटेल में discuss किया था. Why not simply put your money in a savings bank account where you can safely earn 5% interest, for example? There is something called, this is my favorite concept in economics. Favorite concept in economics. This is, थोड़ा सा बैकग्राउंड देता हूं. मन करता है कभी कभी अच्छी चीज बताने का मन भी करता है. अच्छी मतलब इंटरेस्टिंग चीज. ये भी बहुत इंटरेस्टिंग चीज है. दिस इज ऑल्सो रियली इंटरेस्टिंग कॉन्सेप्ट दैट वी डिस्कस, स्पेकुलेटिव डिमांड फॉर मनी. You might have heard of a person named Herbert Simon. Herbert Simon. Herbert Simon, prodigy, economist, public administrationist, philosopher, psychologist, so many things associated with this person, Herbert Simon. He got Nobel Prize in economics in I think 1968. I think 1968 में Herbert Simon got Nobel Prize in economics for his theory of decision making. Decision making. Herbert Simon gave the concept of rational man or a economic man. Rational man. I mean, rational woman भी बोल सकते हो if you want to. Rational man or economic man. The concept of rational man is that a person acts. सुनो ध्यान से. A person acts. Economics में हम हमेशा assume करते हैं. In economics, we always assume, like Aditya's question is, in economics, we always assume that a person will act completely rationally. We expect कि भाई अगर आपके पास एक ऑप्शन है, you have one option to put your money 100 rupees in savings bank or put it in bonds. We always expect that a person will be rational enough to decide whether interest rates are high or low. And depending upon this, a person will put his money either in savings bank or in bonds. Rational. We expect that a man of rational prudence, a man of rationality, rational person है तो उसको knowledge होगी ही होगी कि interest rate अभी कितना है और future में क्या होना चाहिए. We assume while making economic models, we assume that a person will always have knowledge about interest rates. We assume that a person will always have expectations about interest rate. And therefore, if a person makes a decision contrary to what my common sense suggests, then I will say he is not acting in a rational manner. ऐसा हम करते हैं ना कि यार ये क्या गलत काम कर रहा है. He is acting irrationally. Logic suggests, common sense suggests that he should act in a certain manner, but he is acting in a completely different manner, opposite manner. So we are perplexed by these situations, perplexed by a person not acting rationally. हर्बर्ट साइमन ने बोला कि आप गलत हो, यू आर रॉन्ग. Herbert Simon said that this concept of rationality is wrong. We expect people to behave rationally, whereas in reality, people behave in a boundedly rational manner. Boundedly rational manner. Bounded rationality. Bounded rationality. ये एग्जाम के पर्पज से इंपॉर्टेंट नहीं है, बट ये बहुत ही इंटरेस्टिंग कॉन्सेप्ट है. दैट इज व्हाई आई एम टेलिंग यू. फ्रॉम एग्जाम पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू इट्स नॉट इंपॉर्टेंट. बाउंडेड रैशनैलिटी क्या है? बाउंडेड रैशनैलिटी इज दैट अ पर्सन एक्ट्स इन अ मैनर ऑफ बाउंडेडली बीइंग रैशनल. बाउंडेड क्या है यहां पे? अ पर्सन इज बाउंडेड बाय हिज नॉलेज. अ पर्सन इज बाउंडेड बाय what he or she knows, not what you know. Something might be common sense for you, but that is not very common sense for that person. You think that, for example, if it's raining outside, then if you have to go from Noida to Delhi, the most rational way to go is to go via metro. If somebody is taking a cab from Noida to Delhi, then you would be perplexed कि भाई आप कैब क्यों ले रहे हो? क्योंकि सबसे अच्छा तरीका जाने का नोएडा से दिल्ली का मेट्रो से है. But it is what you think is rational decision. What other person thinks is rational, that other person may think कि भाई जो है cab is probably more safe, more comfortable, and therefore I don't mind paying extra money for going via cab. Other person thinks that going via cab is rational. You think going via metro is rational. Both are acting in their own boundedly rational manner. So, why would a person not invest money in bonds and put money in savings bank account? In fact, this is a feature of Indian economy that participants in this market are very less. Despite stock markets, for example, despite stock markets giving very high returns, stock markets being able to increase your wealth by a large factors, still people put their money in savings bank account. If you earn some income, usually what you will do is you will get, अगर आपको इनकम को बढ़ाना है, सिक्योर करना है, तो आप बैंक अकाउंट से उसको एफडी में ट्रांसफर कर दोगे. यू विल ओपन अ रिकरिंग डिपॉजिट और अ फिक्स्ड डिपॉजिट फ्रॉम दैट अमाउंट. यू विल नॉट पुट दैट मनी इन लेट्स से गवर्नमेंट बॉन्ड और इन लेट्स से म्यूचुअल फंड और इन लेट्स से स्टॉक मार्केट. व्हाई? बिकॉज नंबर वन, यू डोंट हैव नॉलेज ऑफ दैट. नंबर टू, इवन इफ यू हैव नॉलेज, you might not trust other instruments. Even if you might trust other instruments, then you might not have time to properly allocate your money. Rationality suggests कि आपको stock market में पैसा लगाना चाहिए, लेकिन because of either lack of knowledge, lack of trust, or lack of time, you don't put your money in stock market. Rather, you let your money earn less than inflation returns by putting your money in fixed deposit. फिक्स डिपॉजिट आज की तारीख में 6% इंटरेस्ट दे रहा है एंड इन्फ्लेशन इज 7%. सो यू आर एक्चुअली लूजिंग आउट ऑन रियल वैल्यू ऑफ मनी इफ यू पुट योर मनी इन फिक्स डिपॉजिट. सो डिस्पाइट दैट पीपल स्टिल पुट देयर मनी इन सेविंग्स बैंक और इससे ऊपर फिक्स डिपॉजिट में देते हैं. व्हाई? बिकॉज ऑफ अनअवेयरनेस. ठीक है, चलो. सो वी हैव डिस्कस्ड वन न्यू कॉन्सेप्ट एंड वी हैव रिवाइज्ड व्हाट डिड वी डू इन लास्ट क्लास यूजिंग आदित्या's क्वेश्चन. नेक्स्ट शुभम का क्वेश्चन है, सर व्हाट इज द नेगेटिव बॉन्ड यील्ड एज लास्ट ईयर? व्हाट इज द नेगेटिव what is the negative bond yield as last year China क्या है? China share it. नेगेटिव बॉन्ड यील्ड क्या होती है? बॉन्ड यील्ड्स विल डिस्कस क्या होती है. व्हाट इज बॉन्ड यील्ड विल डिस्कस. आई रिमेंबर लास्ट टाइम जब हमने क्लास एंड करी थी, सो आई सेड दैट आई हैव नॉट येट गिवन यू डिक्टेशन एंड डिड नॉट टेल यू अबाउट प्रीमियम्स एंड डिस्काउंट्स. आई टेल अबाउट दैट. सो शुभम डोंट वरी, ये बता दूंगा मैं थोड़ी देर में. नेगेटिव बॉन्ड यील्ड्स एंड ऑल दीस थिंग्स आई टेल, डोंट वरी. Sujata ka question. Sir, in last class you wrote on board that present interest rate is inversely proportional to bond price, but it should be directly proportional to bond price according to what you explained in last class. Please clarify my doubt, sir. What am I missing on this? Present interest rate is inversely proportional to bond price. Should it be directly proportional or not? Present interest rate, bond price के proportionality. I think last time, if I remember correctly, it was Lakshay who was asking constantly about sir mathematical error है कुछ. हो सकता है वहीं से आपको कोई issue आया हो. Please see. One is present interest rate. One is present interest rate. Next is future expectations of interest rate. Expectations of interest rate. Future expectations. Present interest rate, for example, is high. आज की तारीख में interest rate high है. Present interest rate is high. Future expectation of interest rate क्या होंगी? That it will move down. It will move downwards. Present interest rate, future expectation of interest rate. Asset prices in future. Asset price in future. If interest rate moves downwards, then asset prices in future will increase. Asset prices in future will increase. If asset prices in future are expected to increase, then today's decision would be to buy assets. If you buy assets today, then therefore speculative demand today is less. Why? Because you are buying assets from your money. If interest rate in present, at present interest rates are high. I think this is clearly visible to everybody. If present interest rate is high, future expectation would be that you expect interest rate to move downwards. Asset prices in future, what do you expect about asset prices? That they will increase in future. क्योंकि interest rate कम होगा तो asset prices increase होंगे. Therefore, today's decision, what will you do today? Today you will decide to buy assets. Hence, today speculative demand would be less. Interest rate today is high, speculative demand today is less. Opposite case भी लिख लेते हैं, but it is very obvious. Please speak up with me while I am writing this. Present interest rate is low. Future expectation of interest rate would be that it will move up. It will move up. Asset prices in future will decrease. Why? Because interest rate will increase in future. Therefore, assets will become relatively less valuable in future. Therefore, assets price will decrease. Therefore, today's decision would be to sell assets, or to sell bonds. Therefore, today you will not decide to convert your extra money over and above your transaction demand to bonds. Rather, whatever bonds you hold, you will try to sell them today. Therefore, speculative demand is more or high. So interest rate, if it is low today, then speculative demand would be high. I hope once and for all, this answers all your questions, clarify all your doubts. What is low base effect? लो बेस इफेक्ट क्या होता है? हेमंत ने पूछा है. लो बेस इफेक्ट इज, आपने न्यूज़पेपर में पढ़ा होगा, लो बेस इफेक्ट. जीडीपी हैज इंक्रीज्ड by 20% in Q1 2021. ठीक है. लो बेस इफेक्ट क्या होता है? लो बेस इफेक्ट इज दिस: when you are rising from a small number, 100 के ऊपर 20 रुपए का इंक्रीमेंट वुड बी 20%. 150 के ऊपर 20 रुपए का इंक्रीमेंट वुड बी 200 कर लेता हूं, ज्यादा आसान है कैलकुलेशन। 200 रुपीज के ऊपर 20 रुपीज का इंक्रीमेंट वुड बी 10%। 400 रुपीज के ऊपर 20 रुपीज का इंक्रीमेंट वुड बी ओनली 5%। अमाउंट ऑफ इंक्रीमेंट इज सेम, बट डिपेंडिंग अपॉन द नंबर ऑन विच इट इज इंक्रीमेंट अपॉन। 20 rupees over 100, 20%. So, a 20% increment over 100 is easily achievable because it is a low base. इसको बोलते हैं low base. Statistics का concept है low base effect. Low base effect. We are measuring growth in quarter 1 of 2021 over quarter 1 of 2020. Our GDP in quarter 1 of 2020 decreased because of COVID lockdown. भाई फर्स्ट क्वार्टर में GDP decrease, complete lockdown in the months of April, May and June. जून क्वार्टर के अंदर complete lockdown in 2020. So our GDP decreased drastically. तो उस डिक्रीज्ड जीडीपी के ऊपर, उस डिक्रीज नंबर के ऊपर 20% का इंक्रीमेंट हुआ है, इंक्रीमेंट ऑफ 20% ओवर दैट डिक्रीज्ड नंबर। दैट इज वाई अब उसके ऊपर अगर थोड़ा भी इंक्रीमेंट होता तो इट लुक्स लाइक अ वेरी बिग नंबर, 20%। एज फार एज दिस न्यूज इज कंसर्न, इसमें मैं आपको एक और चीज बता देता हूं, दैट इवन दो दिस नंबर इज ओवर अ लो बेस, that is when GDP was locked in the year of 2020, when GDP declined drastically, so 20% growth has been achieved over that number. One thing should be kept in mind, this number pertains to this year's months when again lockdown was in place. This number pertains to quarter 1 of 2021, again the months of April, May, June, जब second wave अपने peak पे थी, in the months of April, May and June. So this number pertains against to same months. So if somebody says that it is because of lockdown, तो हर साल lockdown कर देना चाहिए, that is wrong. This year also, despite lockdown, despite second wave at its peak, we have been able to achieve 20% growth rate. Yes, no doubt it is at a low base, over a low base. Next, Shraddha का question है, in printed material it is written that to avoid double counting we have two ways. Shraddha, इस question को बाद में आंसर कर दूं, I'll answer it बिफोर कमिंग बैक फ्रॉम द ब्रेक। जब ब्रेक दूंगा ना उसके बाद आंसर कर दूंगा, ठीक है। अभी इट इज अ लिटिल बिट आउट ऑफ द टॉपिक दैट वी आर डिस्कसिंग। आई आंसर इट, डोंट वरी, आई आंसर इट, ठीक है। उस समय आंसर कर दूंगा, अभी टॉपिक से हटके हो जाएगा काफी ज्यादा। नेक्स्ट, शंकर्स क्वेश्चन, इन न्यूज गिवन दैट विद यूएस फेडरल कमिटी is committed to reducing its asset purchase program known as quantitative easing, the hot money inflow that has fueled Indian stock market may dry up, throwing up nasty surprises. What is hot money? Please explain. Really glad somebody is reading. Shankar has asked this question. Shankar, ये जो चीज है regarding hot money, US Federal Reserve stopping its quantitative easing, we'll discuss all this when we discuss QE, जब हम quantitative easing discuss करेंगे. Discussion of QE depends upon, number one, if we have got time, and number two, if you have got interest. I have a lot of interest in explaining what QE is, quantitative easing. मैं कर दूंगा. You might have realized I don't really care most of the times. कई सारी चीजें जो मुझे बतानी होती है मैं बता ही देता हूं. I'll explain what QE is, do not worry about it. I'll explain quantitative easing in detail. Somebody asked last time कि sir please explain 2008 financial crisis, तो explain करूंगा मैं, don't worry about it. Our understanding with respect to real world examples of economics and finance, do not worry, I'll explain those things. Those things are, I mean, very interesting discussions. जो 2008 financial crisis क्यों हुआ, what things led to that crisis, we'll discuss it, don't worry. What were the decisions taken in the wake of that crisis, which is what is known as quantitative easing. What QE is, I'll discuss it, do not worry. What are the consequences of QE? QE was taken to prevent fallout from financial crisis. What are the consequences of QE? Did QE achieve its objectives? We are still in the fallout of QE. आज 2021 में भी we are still suffering from QE, or not suffering exactly, we are still reeling under the consequences of quantitative easing. So do not worry about that. I'll discuss all those things. But अभी नहीं, थोड़े समय के बाद. थोड़ा समय का मतलब within next 3-4 classes I'll discuss. So don't worry about it. खुशबू, आई थिंक योर क्वेश्चन हैज बीन आंसर्ड. इसके जो भी मैंने एक्सप्लेन किया था इसके थ्रू योर क्वेश्चन आई थिंक मे हैव बीन आंसर्ड. Inverse relationship between interest rate, speculative demand, but in flow chart then we also wrote that if a person expects interest rate to fall then speculative demand is also. I think अब आंसर हो गया होगा खुशबू. What is the relationship of capital investment in the economy and inventories? Shraddha, I have explained this thing during our discussion on national income accounting. Inventories are treated as part of investment. Investment has 3 components. If you remember, investment के 3 components है. First component is new investment, gross fixed capital formation जिसको बोलते हैं. Investment that goes into buying new assets, new capital goods, new land, all that thing, that is new investment. Second part of investment is investment that goes into maintenance of old assets, जो depreciation को overcome करने के लिए, to repair old asset, that is second part of investment. The third part of investment is inventories. Inventories as in change in inventories. You have produced 100 units, you were able to sell only 80 units. So 20 units आपके unsold हैं. जो inventory होती है, inventory is also treated as investment. Inventory को भी investment की तरह treat करते हैं. ठीक है? I hope this is clear to you. ये हम discuss कर चुके हैं श्रद्धा in our discussion on national income accounting. I discussed in detail regarding investment, depreciation, capital, all those things हमने discuss किया था. वैभव, sir, in liquidity trap, why does the investment only satiates people needs and not investment? Please explain this. ठीक है वैभव, I'll explain this again. Liquidity trap वाली situation दोबारा से explain करता हूँ. शांतनु, sir, suppose it is in savings account is 5% and in case of bond is 10%. Now at equilibrium situation, price of bond will be 105 rupees. We have supposed government is borrowing bond worth 100 rupees. Therefore, people will get same interest rate after 1 year if he buys a bond and if he puts money in savings bank account. Then why will anybody want to buy a bond as he will not get more interest rate? चलो, I'll answer this question और उसके बाद हम start करते हैं फटाफट अपना discussion. द बिग शॉट देख ले भाई नेक्स्ट 2008 क्राइसिस के लिए. बिल्कुल बिल्कुल. आपके बैच में अभी तक सरप्राइजिंगली आई हैव नॉट येट गिवन. अरे यार ठीक है पूनम जी, वी आर मूविंग टू नेक्स्ट टॉपिक्स. दीज आर इंपॉर्टेंट. प्लीज अंडरस्टैंड वी आर नॉट हेयर मेरली फॉर कंप्लीशन ऑफ कोर्स. कंप्लीशन ऑफ कोर्स करना है तो यार मैं फास्ट ट्रैक बैच में भी कंप्लीशन ऑफ कोर्स करता हूं. देयर आई एम गिवन ओनली 15 क्लासेस टू फिनिश द कोर्स. So there is no discussion there. You have paid something extra, so please enjoy that thing extra. At least make sure that you are asking questions, you are able to realize, visualize economics. It's not a revision class. It's a class in which we are studying things for the first time and we expect to understand things in a more broader manner. Certainly I know about the time, don't worry about it. We'll move forward, don't worry. हाँ, तो जैसे मैं कह रहा था, बिग शॉट मूवी नेटफ्लिक्स पे है. अगर आपके पास नेटफ्लिक्स नहीं है तो टॉरेंट तो सभी के पास है. So whatever you want, wish, whatever you plan to, you can watch that Big Short movie. That is a really good movie. बहुत अच्छी पिक्चर है Big Short, वो आप देख सकते हो. Depicts 2008 financial crisis very closely. Very, I mean, real stories based on real people. So it talks about that. Easy to understand comedy movie है, ठीक है? तो आप देखो उसको, अच्छी पिक्चर है Big Short. I usually give references of the Big Short movie many times in my classes. I think this time मॉनेटरी पॉलिसी चैप्टर स्टार्ट हुआ तो हो सकता है अब बिग शॉट के रेफरेंसेस स्टार्ट हो जाएंगे. ठीक है, चलो. फाइन. A question that probably irritates many people is this, has been irritating many of you, is this, that why would a person invest money in a bond when bond will also give 5 rupees and savings bank will also give 5 rupees at the end of 1 year. So why will a person invest money in a savings bank, in a bond? Why? The answer to this is the following. You do not invest in a bond to earn interest. Just like you do not invest or you do not put your money in a savings bank account to earn interest. Usually a savings bank account will not pay you interest or very less interest. You are at the mercy of bank if bank wants to pay interest or not. तो जो interest आपको मिलेगा on savings bank account, that would be very less. Interest that you will earn on bond will be very less. Your objective of investment, everyone please listen. Your objective of investment in bonds is not to earn interest from those bonds, but to ensure that those bonds appreciate and therefore you are able to buy, you are able to sell your good for something more than you bought it for. आपका ऑब्जेक्टिव है कि आपने जो 105 का बॉन्ड खरीदा है इसको आप 106 में as quickly as possible sell कर सको. Your objective is to sell it for 106, 110, whatever price. This is your objective. Your objective is not to wait for 1 year to earn 5% interest. That is not your 5 rupees on this. You keep your money in savings bank account not to earn 5 rupees. The 5 rupees that you are earning there is just an example कि आप उसके अंदर भी कुछ पैसा मान लो बना सकते हो. Those 5 rupees are mere, the money that you have kept in savings bank is merely representative of liquidity. That money in savings bank is completely liquid, whereas money in bonds is not that liquid. Once you get into this bond, you will not be able to get out very easily. It is not completely liquid like money in savings bank. तो आपका ऑब्जेक्टिव यहां पे इंटरेस्ट कमाने का नहीं है. When you buy bonds, you don't buy them to earn interest. I hope this is clear. This makes things clear for you. ठीक है, चलो. वैभव, जो आपका लिक्विडिटी ट्रैप वाला क्वेश्चन था, आई थिंक दैट वुड हैव बीन आंसर्ड नाउ. Liquid trap, why does investment only satiates people need and not investment? People, please explain this. Yeah. Why does investment satiates when I dictated notes to you last time and I referred NCERT as well, I told you that when interest rates are extremely low, Lakshya, I have read your doubt, I'll answer that. When interest rates are extremely low, then additional supply of money satiates only people's cravings for cash. And Vaibhav is saying, why not investment? इसका आंसर वैभव क्वेश्चन में ही है. Why not investment? When interest rate is very low, then whatever extra money is pumped up into the economy, whatever extra money is introduced in the economy, that money will not be used for investment. If money is coming in the economy, I will not deny it. I will like to hold as much money as I can. अगर मेरे पास 50,000 रुपए हैं, I spend 20,000 rupees for my transactions, I have 30,000 rupees of extra money. If somehow I now get 80,000, I now get 1 lakh, I now get 2 lakh rupees. My transaction demand is still, let us say 30,000, 50,000 rupees. 2 lakh रुपए मेरे पास पैसे हैं, my transaction demand is still 50,000 rupees only. What will I do with that 1,50,000 rupees? I will still like to keep that 1,50,000 rupees as cash. It will just satiate my craving to keep more money with myself. Satiate, bhook lagna. क्रेविंग्स भूख लगना, सेशिएट मतलब सेटिस्फाई होना. It will just, any extra money that comes in the economy will just satisfy my hunger for keeping more money as cash. I will not invest that money. Invest नहीं करो, चाहे मेरे पास 1.5 लाख एक्स्ट्रा हो, चाहे मेरे पास 1.5 करोड़ एक्स्ट्रा हो. I will not invest my money. As a rational man, I will not invest my money because I do not expect my assets to appreciate in future. मैं इन्वेस्ट कब करूंगा? मेरे पास मनी एक्स्ट्रा बहुत सारा है, घर पे बेड भरे पड़े हैं मेरे, एग्जाम्पल के तौर पे माई बेड, माई मैट्रेसेस आर फिल्ड विद कैश, स्टिल आई विल नॉट इन्वेस्ट 1 penny out of that. Why? Because I will never make an investment in some loss making asset. Why should I put my money somewhere when I know that its value is going to decrease in future? Certainly I will not. So any extra money that is pumped in will only be used to satiate my craving for cash, not investment. ठीक है, चलो. Let us start our class for today, everybody. About half an hour has passed. More than 45 minutes have passed. 45 minutes has passed. Let's now start our class quickly, everyone. So we discussed speculative demand of money last time. We discussed the concept of interest rates, asset prices, speculation based on expectations, and today's decisions which decide your speculative demand for money. ये सब concepts हमने discuss किए थे. When we discussed this concept of interest rates, the interest rates which we have discussed, everyone please pay attention now. We are starting with new thing which we had not discussed earlier. अब हम start कर रहे हैं. Please everyone, please pay attention. The interest rates which we discussed were interest rates on savings bank account. Bank account. This was the interest rate. So R, ये जो हमने ग्राफ बनाया था, this R here in our discussion, interest rate was interest rate which we get on savings bank account. We put our money in savings bank and what is the interest rate that we earn? Subtle तरीके से, in a very subtle manner, I used, some of you noticed, some of you might not have noticed, I started to use the word interest rates without reference to interest rate on savings bank account. I started to use the word interest rate as a general term, as a general interest rate. So somewhere down the line when I was explaining the transition from interest rate on savings bank account transitioned to only interest rate. When I use the word only interest rate, this word only interest rate, this interest rate means general interest rates in the economy. Now what is this general interest rate? Interest rate is interest rate that you get on savings bank account, interest rate that you get on fixed deposit, interest rate that you get on government bond, interest that you earn in any investment, interest that you pay when you take a loan from bank, interest that you pay when you take a loan from some NBFC, when a bank takes loan from RBI. So there are multiple interest rates that exist at any time in the economy. I'll repeat, interest rates, there are many connotations of this word interest rates in the economy at any point of time. Interest rates may mean interest rates on savings bank, interest rates which you pay to the bank when you borrow money from the bank. Different people will pay different interest rates when they borrow money from the bank. Interest rate that you earn on government bond, interest rate that government earns by lending money to somebody else. So interest rate जो है इकोनॉमी में 50,000 अलग तरह के इंटरेस्ट रेट एग्जिस्ट कर रहे हैं. मनी लेंडर इज चार्जिंग सम इंटरेस्ट रेट, NBFC is charging some other interest rate. So there are many different interest rates that exist in the economy. These interest rates, all of these interest rates are independent, are independently derived. When I say independently derived, it means all of these interest rates are either set by one party or are negotiated between two parties. When you borrow money from the bank, usually you negotiate interest rate which bank is going to charge from you. When you deposit money in savings bank account, you are unable to negotiate, bank sets that interest rate. When you borrow money from an NBFC, NBFC से आप usually again you negotiate what is the interest rate that NBFC is going to charge from you. When government comes out with a bond, government fixes the interest rate, so therefore there is no scope of negotiation there. So all these interest rates are kind of independent, but all these interest rates are a function of a general interest rate that prevails in the economy. A general interest rate which prevails in the economy, all these interest rates are a function of that. All interest rates are independent. Also all interest rates move in tandem with each other. They are independent of each other, meaning that interest rates are independently determined. Government will come out with a bond interest rate of its own choosing. Bank will come out with an interest rate of its own choosing. So they are independent of each other, but they all move in tandem with each other. A general interest rate in the economy is that interest rate which can be thought of. Everybody listen. A general interest rate is that interest rate which can be thought of, that independent interest which influences all other interest rates in the economy. A general interest rate is that hypothetical interest rate. Which can be thought of. As that interest rate which influences all others. One of a strong contender of the title of this general interest rate is something called as repo rate. Repo rate क्या होता है ये हमने नहीं देखा है. We'll see what repo rate is. I said one of the strong contenders of the title of this general interest rate is something called as repo rate. What repo rate is, we'll see later on. But for now, please understand this generic concept of general interest rate. General interest rates की interest rates in general क्या हैं? Interest rates in general ज्यादा हैं या in general कम हैं? If in general interest rates are high, that means all interest rates would be high. Borrowing interest rate, lending interest rate, government bond, NBFC, bank, सारे interest rates generally high होंगे. If in general interest rates are low, then all interest rates generally would be low. You borrow from NBFC, for example. जब आप NBFC से borrow करते हो, when you borrow from an NBFC, then usually NBFCs charge a higher interest rate as compared to bank. If you borrow money from a bank, for example, you will pay an interest rate of 10%. But if you borrow at same time money from an NBFC, usually you will end up paying higher interest rate. Usually NBFC का minimum interest rate होगा 15%. So 15% is low interest rate as far as NBFC is concerned. अगर हम NBFC के context में बात करें, then 15% is a low interest rate. अगर हम बैंक की context में बात, if we talk in the context of bank, then 15% is a high interest rate. Why? Because in context of bank, 10% is the low interest rate. In context of NBFC, 25% is a higher interest rate. So in general, when I say interest rates are low, that means banks, for example, are usually charging around 10% interest rate when you borrow. NBFCs are charging usually around 15% when you borrow from them. In general, interest rates are less. Independently, all are different. But in general, they are less. This is the concept of this general interest rate. I've taken this general interest rate as a representative of all interest rates in the economy. rather than simply saying savings bank interest rate, I simply say general interest rate. अगर general interest rates high हैं, इसका मतलब savings bank interest rate भी high. That means savings bank interest rate would also be high. If generally interest rates are low, that means savings bank interest rate would also be low. So this is why I transition from this term interest rate in context of savings bank to interest rate in context of general interest rate. So this is about interest rates. We'll have a more detailed discussion of interest rates now. अब हम interest rates का और detailed discussion करेंगे, because now we are moving on to the discussion on money supply of money. We have discussed demand of money. Demand of money we have discussed. Demand of money हम discuss कर चुके हैं. In demand of money we discussed the transaction demand, which was equals to K into Y, your GDP. KPY, और again notation में आप कई बार confuse हो जाते हो, because sometime I use the word Q, sometime I use the word Y. Transaction demand of money, which was K constant multiplied by your nominal GDP, where P is your price level, Y is your real GDP. So nominal GDP, KPY. We have discussed speculative demand of money. Speculative demand of money was inversely proportional to your interest rates. Inversely proportional to interest rates. So again, if you want to write a proportionality constant, तो आप इसमें ये लिख सकते हो, for example, some K1 upon R. इस तरीके से लिखना चाहो तो लिख सकते हो. You can write this K1 upon R. Speculative demand of money is inversely, the point is inversely proportional to interest rate. NCERT gives this formula. Speculative demand is R max minus R upon R minus R min. तो उन्होंने ये for R min. What is the point here? Here also the point is speculative demand is inversely proportional to. Numerator में क्या है? Minus R. So if R increases, numerator will go down. If R increases, denominator will increase. So this equation is also summarizing the relationship of inverse proportionality between speculative demand and interest rate. फॉर्मूला नहीं देखना है हमें. वी डोंट हैव टू लुक एट दी फॉर्मूला की फॉर्मूला ये है क्या स्पेकुलेटिव डिमांड का, या ये है ट्रांजैक्शन डिमांड का. हमें भावनाएं देखनी है. वी हैव टू लुक एट दी ब्रॉडर पिक्चर हियर. द ब्रॉडर पिक्चर बीइंग दैट ट्रांजैक्शन डिमांड इज डायरेक्टली प्रोपोर्शनल टू योर नॉमिनल जीडीपी एंड स्पेकुलेटिव डिमांड इज इनवर्सली प्रोपोर्शनल टू योर इंटरेस्ट रेट्स. फॉर्मूला कुछ भी हो, फॉर्मूला ये हो, फॉर्मूला यू हैव टू लुक एट दी ब्रॉडर पिक्चर. That interest rate and speculative demand inversely proportional to interest rates, transaction demand directly proportional to your nominal GDP. Total demand of money, total demand of money, total money demanded is equals to your transaction demand plus your speculative demand, which is equals to KPY plus let's say K1 upon R. This is your total demand of money, meaning the total demand is directly proportional to nominal GDP and inversely proportional to interest rates. This is your total demand of money. Money demand equation ये है. Total demand of money directly proportional to your nominal GDP and inversely proportional to your interest rates. Now let us move over to money supply. Supply of money. Supply of money. Money supply. We've discussed money demand. Now let us discuss supply of money. In this supply of money, we'll have a look at two important subtopics. दो चीजें देखेंगे हम supply of money में. Supply of money में we'll have a look at creation of money. Creation of money. Within this, we'll have a look at creation of money by RBI, that is central bank, and creation of money by the banking system. Creation of money by the banking system. This is the first part that we look in supply of money. Second thing that we look in supply of money is measurement of money. Measurement of money supply. Measurement and control, both things, sorry. Measurement and control of money supply. This is what we are going to study in today and in next class. लगभग one class पूरी लगेगी. So today about half of the class is left, and next class about first hour or so will be taken up in discussing this. The next thing that we are starting is supply of money. We have discussed demand of money completely now. Now we'll be discussing supply. In supply, we'll discuss two things. First, we'll look at money creation. Money creation mein we'll look at how does RBI create money and how does banking system create money, or the credit creation process, money creation to credit process. Second thing that we look at is measurement and control of money supply. How is money supply measured? Total money kitna hai, and how is money supply controlled? In this control portion, जो control का portion है, in this control portion, we'll have a look at various tools of money supply. CRR, SLR, repo rate, reverse repo rate, OMOs, all those things we are going to have a look at in this discussion of controlling money supply. Okay? So let us start with our discussion of supply of money. See everybody, supply of money is a decided variable. When I use the word decided, it means externally decided. Demand of money is a internally, automatically determined variable. Demand of money jo hai, it depends upon interest rates and it depends upon level of nominal GDP. Demand of money inversely proportional to interest rates, directly proportional to your nominal GDP. ये हमने discuss किया. Supply of money is something which is decided, not because of interest rates or nominal GDP. Supply of money is something which is fixed by the central bank. Supply of money is something which is fixed by the central bank. RBI determines, RBI देखेगा कि money supply, money demand कितना है. RBI will see how much money is demanded in the economy. Number one. Then RBI will look at various other objectives that it has. It will see how much money is needed for economy to grow, how much money is needed in the economy to fulfill transaction demands, and how much money will cause economy to heat up. अगर money excess, demand तो money की infinite हो जाएगी. Everybody demands as much money as possible, satiate the cravings. If money in the economy is made available infinitely, then that will lead to increasing the prices of all goods and services in the economy or not. So RBI will have to decide that how much money has to be supplied in the economy, keeping in mind various objectives. क्या objectives हैं RBI के? Various objectives of RBI are: number one, to make sure that money is available in adequate amount to satisfy people's decisions, people's transaction demand. For transaction purposes, if you need something, you should have that money. You should not be able to not afford something because there was absence of money. Demonetization के बाद, for example, what happened? There was lack of money available in the economy for some time. Despite people willing to buy something, they did not possess money to buy that thing. Digital transactions इतने ज़्यादा नहीं थे. They kicked up drastically because of that. Why? Because again, we thought of money as cash. Because you did not have cash after demonetization, then despite demanding something, you could not purchase that thing. So transaction demand was not being met because adequate amount of money was not present. So RBI's decision regarding how much money should be supplied in the economy would first foremost be determined by how much money is required to meet transaction demand. कितना लोगों को खर्च करना है और उसके लिए how much do they need transaction purposes के लिए. Secondly, RBI and transaction demand dependent upon level of nominal GDP. Secondly, RBI will determine that how much money is needed by the people so that prices do not rise beyond an intolerable level. If money is made available in the economy in a large quantity that will lead to a situation of too much money chasing too few goods. Money would be available in excess, whereas goods will not be available as required, as are demanded by that money, which will lead to increasing in prices of goods. Therefore, RBI will keep in mind कि ज्यादा inflation ना हो. Money available in the economy should not cause inflation in the economy. So second objective would be to see whether money available is not inflationary in nature. So RBI will determine money supply, that how much money needs to be supplied, needs to be made available based on these aspects. RBI takes a decision, and based on that decision, RBI introduces money in the economy. So RBI introduce करेगा एक बार में, जैसे now 10 lakh crore rupees are circulating in the economy. RBI will make available 10 lakh crore rupees or 11 lakh crore rupees or 15 lakh crore rupees. RBI will decide based on various objectives. The point is, एक बार RBI ने decide कर लिया, once RBI decides, then it becomes a decided number. So money supply is something which is fixed. Today money supply is this much. It is not changing based on what people are demanding or what speculation demand is saying or what is the level of nominal GDP. Once RBI decides, it introduces that much money and now money supply becomes fixed at that number. It will change. वो change होगी कुछ factors से. How will it change? We'll discuss. But I think this point should be clear, that what is meant by the term decided variable. It is externally determined. Interest rates determine नहीं कर रहे हैं. Level of nominal, I mean, all of that is being decided by RBI. RBI is deciding that how much interest rate should be there, how much nominal GDP should be there, how much speculative demand is there. RBI is deciding, and then once RBI takes decision, it decides to print some money and make it available in the economy. And once money is made available, now it is fixed at that particular level. Ab 10 lakh crore rupees, 10 lakh crore rupees are circulating in the economy today, for example. That number is fixed. 10 lakh crore rupees is fixed. Doesn't matter what happens to nominal GDP, doesn't matter what happens to interest rate. RBI will determine, okay, nominal GDP कम हो रही है, prices बढ़ रहे हैं, inflation कम हो रही है. RBI will decide, okay, now we can inject 1 lakh crore rupees more. So now 10 lakh से 11 lakh crore रुपए हो जाएंगे. But again, now it becomes fixed at 11 lakh crore rupees. RBI decides inflation बहुत बढ़ गई है, inflation has increased a lot, so we need to pull out money. Why? Because there is case of too much money chasing too few goods. So RBI will now decide, okay, let us pull out some money from the economy. From 11 lakh crores, it will pull out, let's say 2 lakh crores, and now money in the economy becomes 9 lakh crores. So it is fixed at this level of 9 lakh crore rupees. The point is, the money available at any point in the economy is called as money supply. Money available at any point, right now, at this very moment, how much money is available in the economy? That is called as money supply. How much money is there? That is called as money supply. And that number, how much money is available, is a determined number, is a number which is decided by RBI. Money supply. Money supply का मतलब क्या है? Money supply means money supply. Money supply. Money supply means amount of money available in the economy at any point of time. This is what money supply is. Amount of money available in the economy at any point of time is called money supply. And this number, this amount of money is decided by RBI. RBI decides how much money would be available in the economy at any point of time. RBI decides on the basis of multiple factors. For example, RBI will decide on the basis of tolerable rate of inflation. tolerable rate of inflation. RBI will decide on the basis of transaction demand of people. RBI will decide on the basis of demand of government to spend money. How much money does government need for expenditure? Based on various factors. RBI will take into account various factors to determine how much money needs to be made available in the economy at a particular point of time. RBI decides कि भाई इतना money required है. RBI will introduce that much money, and that money which is there in the economy at a particular point of time is called money supply. This is what is meant by the term money supply. Money supply has various measures. Measures of money supply. Measures of money supply. Money supply has various measures. These measures are called conveniently M1, M2, M3, M4. M1, these measures of money supply are in the decreasing order of liquidity. Decreasing order of liquidity. Are in increasing the scope of coverage. The scope of coverage. दोनों चीजें एक सेकंड में पता चल जाएंगी, बस मेरे को लिखने दो. I'll just explain these things in 1 second. M1 is called M1 is equals to, conventionally we use the terms CC plus DD, meaning M1 is currency in circulation plus demand deposits with banks. Measures of money supply. What is money supply? Money supply क्या है? Money supply is amount of money present in the economy at a given point of time. Amount of money available in the economy at any point of time. How much money is available right now? At this very moment, how much money is there? कितना पैसा है economy में? Money. How much money is there in the economy at this very moment? When we have to measure how much amount of money is there at this very moment, then we first have to determine what is it that we call money. Money, पैसा किसको बोलेंगे? What is it that we designate as money? There are various designations of money. There are various ways in which we designate money. The simplest way to designate money is to simply count amount of currency plus amount of money in banks as deposits. The simplest way to define money is to say that money is equals to currency, what currency notes people have in their pockets, plus how much money is deposited by people in their bank accounts in form of demand deposits. Demand deposit is money available on demand. Money available on demand. How much money is available on demand? Demand का मतलब whenever I demand money, it must be made available to me. I want it right now, therefore it must be made available. ऐसा नहीं है that I would wait for something to happen, somebody to sell something, only then money would be made available to me. I demand it right now, it must be available to me right now. That is called money on demand or demand deposit. Deposits which people keep in their current accounts or savings bank account. Current account पे you don't earn any interest. Savings bank पे you earn very low interest. This money is assumed to be equally liquid like currency in circulation. Like currency is available to you whenever you need it. Currency is there in your pocket, so therefore whenever you need it, you can spend it. Similarly, it is assumed that money in your bank account is also available to you at almost all the times when you need it. आज जैसे liquidity बहुत ज्यादा बढ़ गई है, money which is in your bank account. If we go back 5 years, 5 साल पहले जाते हैं, so then, or if we go back, let's say 20 years, when ATMs were not there, then money in your bank account, you needed to go to a bank account and withdraw that money. That was a little bit cumbersome process, plus banks were open only till 5 p.m. You could not withdraw money all the time. So there was some less liquidity as compared to currency in circulation when you compared it with the money that you had in your bank account. But still, we used to consider them as almost equally liquid. Money in deposits, your demand deposits, and money in form of currency circulation, they are considered to be almost equally liquid. आज की तारीख में today you don't need to go to your bank account. Most of your transactions are done now digitally. आप मोबाइल से पे करते हो, UPI, Beam, जो भी चीज आप यूज करते हो. Most of the time you use cards, you swipe your card, so you don't need to go to the bank physically to withdraw money. So now liquidity of this deposit in bank is almost as good as liquidity of currency in circulation. So the most liquid way, the easiest way to define money is to define money as currency in circulation and demand deposits with bank. Completely liquid, almost completely liquid. The most basic way to measure the amount of money in circulation in the economy. Economy में कितना पैसा है आज की तारीख में? One easy way to measure is to simply measure how much cash is there with the people, with all the people in the economy, plus how much deposits are there of all the people in the banks. Simplest way is to measure CC plus DT, currency in circulation plus demand deposits with banks. Measurement of money supply. Second, which is called as M2. M2 के अंदर हम क्या करते हैं? M2 में we include currency in circulation plus demand deposit plus post office deposits plus post office demand deposits. Post office demand deposits. Now see, these are old forms of money supply. M1, M2, M3, M4. ये तब define किए गए थे जब post office demand deposits थोड़े prominent हुआ करते थे. People used to deposit money in post offices, so therefore post offices used to be a prominent source, prominent place where people had kept their money in form of deposits. Today, nobody has deposited in any post office. All the deposits which were there have been converted into, because पोस्ट ऑफिस हैज नाउ बीन कन्वर्टेड इनटू पोस्ट ऑफिस बैंक, इंडिया पोस्ट पेमेंट्स बैंक. अब उसको बैंक में कन्वर्ट कर दिया गया है. सो नाउ ऑल दोज डिपॉजिट्स हैव नाउ बिकम ऑटोमेटिकली पार्ट ऑफ डिमांड डिपॉजिट. व्हाई? बिकॉज deposits which were there in post office earlier have now been converted, because post office has been converted into a bank. All the deposits which post offices used to have, all of them have been converted as part of demand deposit with banks. So now this has lost its relevance completely. अब इसकी relevance बिल्कुल नहीं रह गई, but because these are been defined earlier, तो इसीलिए इसको अभी भी हम use करते हैं. M1, M2 in which we include post office demand deposits. Post offices were different from banks earlier. Now they are the same, but because the definition is old, that is why we are using this. I am telling you this old definition. Next comes M3. M3 में क्या है? M3 is M1 plus time deposits with banks. Time deposits with banks. M3 is M1 plus time deposits with bank. Now, time deposit is another type of deposit that you put in bank, which is, for example, your fixed deposit, FD, RD. Money that you keep in bank is not always in form of savings bank deposit or current account deposit. Sometimes you keep money in form of fixed deposits or recurring deposits. those deposits are not available to you on demand. आपकी डिमांड पे अवेलेबल नहीं है. You cannot go to the bank and say मेरी FD में 2 लाख रुपए हैं तो वो FD के 2 लाख रुपए मुझे दो. You cannot go to the bank and demand that money which is kept in the bank as time deposit at any time. There is a time period associated. You can ask for that money only after a certain amount of time. Only when the fixed deposit matures, only then will that money be made available to you. So now do you understand that this money, time deposit, will not be as liquid like demand deposit? Demand deposit completely liquid है, लेकिन fixed deposit liquid नहीं है. Fixed deposit is not available to you when you need money to spend. It will be made available to you only after a fixed time period. If you insist that fixed deposit should be made available to you right now, then there would be some costs. अगर आपको FD, जिसको बोलते हैं ना FD तोड़वाना, if you have to break your FD, then you will have to bear some charges, you will have to forego some interest rate. Only then will you be able to get this money. Again, point is, there is hindrance in you accessing this money. Either the hindrance is in form of time, that you can access it only after a time, or hindrance is in form of interest or penalty that you have to pay if you break it. So there is some lack of liquidity, lesser liquidity in M3, in these time deposits. तो इसको हम बोलते हैं M3. When you include time deposits with the bank with this CC plus DD, this is called as M3. I hope you can now see that M3 would be less liquid measure of money supply in the economy as compared to M1. M1 is more liquid, M3 is less liquid. Why? Because M3 के अंदर एक less liquid component है. But as far as measurement is concerned, M3 is measuring money in a more broader sense. The scope of definition of money is more broad in M3 as compared to M1 or M2. M3 ज़्यादा broadly measure कर रहा है. M1 में time deposits were not measured. M3 में time deposits are measured. So this is a broader, it has a more scope of measurement of money in the economy. M4 simply would be M3 plus deposits, other deposits with post office, Basically, M4 is M3 plus post office demand deposits plus post office time deposits. So I've simply said deposits with post office. Deposit with post office will include both time as well as demand deposits with post office. So all deposits with post office would be included in M4. So M3 and M4 largely same, बस difference है post office को include करना है. M1, M2 largely same, but difference is post office को include करना है. And now M2 and M4 have lost their relevance because M2 and M4, which the only distinguishing factor was post office deposits. Now post office deposits are not separate, they are part of banks now. M1 and M2 are called narrow money. They are called narrow money. Whereas M3 and M4 are called broad money. इनको हम बोलते हैं broad money. M3 and M4 are called broad, whereas M1 and M2 are called narrow. Now please read what did I write here. I wrote here that M1, M2, M3, M4. This is a decreasing order of liquidity. Liquidity का decreasing order है. M1 is the measure of most liquid money. CC and DD, currency in circulation plus demand deposits, most liquid money. Whereas M4 consists of time deposits in banks as well as post office. So M4 least liquid है. M1 most liquid, M4 least liquid. M2 less liquid than M1, M3 less liquid than M1 and M2, M4 less liquid than M1, M2, M3. So this is order of decreasing order of liquidity. Most liquid to least liquid. प्रीलिम्स में 1 मार्कर क्वेश्चन, आसान क्वेश्चन आएगा तो ये पूछ लिया जाएगा, अरेंज द फॉलोइंग इन द ऑर्डर ऑफ देयर लिक्विडिटी. विथ वन स्टेटमेंट वुड बी गिवन, M4 is the most liquid amongst the measure of money supply. Statement would be wrong. M1 is the most liquid, M4 is the least liquid. Narrow money, M1, M2 are narrow, M3, M4 are called broad. Why? Because increasing scope of coverage M1 is narrowly defined money. Only currency and demand deposits are included, narrowly defined, whereas M3 and M4 are broadly defined. Why? Because they include time deposits. M4 most broadly defined. Why? Because M4 includes time deposits of banks as well as post offices. M3 includes time deposits of banks. So broadly, broad money, increasing scope of coverage. M1, M2 narrow money, M3, M4 broad money. Why? Because the scope of coverage of how we define money is less in M1, M2, more in M3, M4. These are measures of money supply. इनको बोलते हैं measures of money supply. Having seen the measures of money supply, now we shall be able to look at creation of money. We'll come back to measures of money supply when we discuss the concepts of money multiplier, and the concept of money multiplier will be discussed only once we understand the concept of creation of money, money creation process. Again, a very important topic coming up for discussion, a little bit tricky one at that. So please, I'll request you please pay attention now. Money creation process, money creation process. I get tired of explaining RBI's balance sheet, RBI's surplus transfer to the government in current affairs classes. PT 365, Main 365, current affairs, updation. इतनी बार वो चीज आ चुकी है पढ़ाने के लिए. How does RBI transfer money to the government? Surplus transfer, 99,000 crore has been transferred. How does this transfer? All these things I've explained it so many times in classes. I get bored of it sometimes. Extremely important topic. RBI's transfers to the government. Surplus of RBI, how does RBI generate income? Extremely important topic from mains, prelims, both point of view. Interview, again, all 3 point of view. RBI's transfer is very important. I don't know why is this topic not taught generally in classes. I mean, in regular classes, why is this topic not taught? I'm going to teach you this topic, don't worry about it. Let's study about the money creation process. How is money created? Well, we know that money, as we've seen, is simply, let us assume, currency plus demand deposits with bank. Let us assume this. The question is, how is money created? कैसे create करते हैं money को? Money is created in 2 ways. There are 2 institutions which are responsible to create money. One institution is RBI, that is the central bank. Every country has a central bank. And second institution is the banking system. दोनों create करते हैं money. RBI also creates and banking system also creates. RBI creates seed money. RBI creates the seed. And banking system creates the tree. Money plant देखा है? Money plant देखो. Maybe that is why that plant is called as money plant. I don't know why is it called money plant. Maybe this is why it would not be called because of this. Money plant, अगर नहीं देखा तो मैं बताता हूँ money plant क्या होता है. Money plant एक बेल की तरह होता है. बेल, creeper. Money plant is like a creeper. It is a creeper. If you pot money plant will keep on growing. On other, if you have money plant in your garden, in your gamla, in your pot, wherever you have, it will go to the nearby plant. It will surround that plant, grow. Then it will go to the nearby plant. It will surround that plant and grow. And one thing that money plant does is this. It is potted in its own pot. अपने pot में money plant pot होगा. यहाँ पे money plant is potted. It goes to the nearby pot where let's say some other plant is there. कोई और plant है यहाँ पे. It will pot itself here and then it will continue its journey to next pot. So money plant is here. It goes round it, or it will go to the nearby plant. Then it will pot itself here. Then it will move on to carry on to the other plant. So उसकी बेल है और वो उस तरीके से जलती चली जाएगी. This initial pot is RBI. Initial pot is RBI, where money is seeded. And the subsequent pots are banks. Subsequent pots are banks, which enable more money to be created. I hope this example serves you well as far as remembering is concerned. Money creation process पढ़ने जा रहे हैं हम. We are going to study money creation process. Money creation is done by two institutions in the economy. One institution is central bank, another institution is the banking system. Central bank, that is RBI. RBI will create the initial seed. The initial amount of money will be created by RBI. And from that initial money, the banking system will take it and create money out of thin air. New money will be created by the banking system from the initial amount of money which RBI has injected into the economy. We'll see how this is done. Let us see. देखते हैं कैसे काम करता है banking, the money creation process. Let us see. Central bank. How does central bank create money? We have discussed the evolution of money. जब मैंने Bitcoin वाला discussion किया था, we discussed how has money evolved, how does anything come to be accepted as form of money. We have discussed that thing. Now let us see how does central bank create money. Think about it like this. Central bank is that institution which has the power to issue order. Issue order. That is fiat. Fiat. Central bank, everyone listen. Central bank has the power to issue order, that is fiat, that something will be acceptable as money. A piece of paper will be acceptable as money. Central bank has this power, and this power has been given. Power has been conferred by law. Power has been conferred by law. RBI Act of 1934. RBI Act of 1934 gives RBI the power to designate a piece of paper as money, as currency form of money. So the power to issue this order comes from a law. Law, RBI Act, it has conferred upon RBI this power that it can say that this piece of paper will now be acceptable as 50 rupees, 100 rupees, 200, 2000 rupees note. But merely can a law empower an institution when people do not accept it? Why would I be willing to sell real goods worth some value to you for something which is worthless? केवल लॉ की पावर नहीं है यहां पे. I can refuse. आप नेगोशिएबल इंस्ट्रूमेंट एक्ट लेके आओ, आप लीगल टेंडर उसको डेजिग्नेट करते रहो. You designate something as legal tender, you say that it cannot be refused as a means to repay debt, but I will not trust it. Why should I trust a piece of paper that you have said should be acceptable as currency? You say, though this has so many properties, it is secured by blockchain, it is cryptocurrencies, it is encrypted, or let's say it cannot be counterfeited. There are so many security features, only we can print it, nobody else can print this, nobody else can print. We are trying to ensure so much security. Why would I be interested in exchanging my real goods for that kagaj ka tukda, for that piece of paper? Why would I be? You have the power of law, it's okay. You designate something as legal tender, fine. Be happy with it. But why should I be forced to sell fruits of my labor to somebody else for that worthless piece of paper? 2 रुपए का कागज का टुकड़ा है जो कि 2000 नोट के रूप में एक्सचेंज किया जाता है. So why should I be forced to sell? It is not merely because of the power conferred by law. Law can confer power upon RBI, but law cannot give legitimacy to its decision. Legitimacy. Law can confer upon RBI the power to designate something, the power to issue currency, but law cannot give legitimacy to RBI. Law cannot force people to trust unless it is dictatorship. Unless we are in a dictatorial system where मोहम्मद बिन तुगलक सेज कि भाई आज से ये होगा, तो मोहम्मद बिन तुगलक सेज ने बोले तो आज से होगा ही होगा, और जी जिनपिंग सेज आज से होगा तो वो होगा ही होगा. We are not in a dictatorship, so I will need to trust RBI in order to actually exchange my goods which are really worth something for this 2 rupees piece of paper which is being used for 2000 rupees. Law doesn't give legitimacy. Legitimacy is earned by actions and demonstration of capability. Demonstration of capability. Legitimacy is earned by actions and demonstration of capability. Legitimacy cannot be conferred upon something. Power can be conferred by law. Legitimacy cannot be conferred. Legitimacy has to be earned. How does RBI earn this legitimacy? How does it take some actions to demonstrate that it has got some power? How does it demonstrate its capability? कैसे करता है? Please understand this now. There are two things to this. We are discussing RBI's power to print money, or to let's say create money, We are discussing this. There are three elements to this. One is legal element, that is power conferred by law, RBI Act 1934. There is one element, this. The second element is of legitimacy, which has two elements. Legitimacy, जिसके दो parts हैं. Capability plus demonstration. Two parts to this. Capability and demonstration. Capability क्या है? Capability is that capability comes from what is called as reserve system. Capability comes from something called as reserve system. I'll explain, just 1 minute, give me 2 minutes, I'll explain what reserve system is. Capability comes from something called as reserve system. Demonstration comes from something called as promise by an authority. Capability comes from reserve system, demonstration comes from promise by an authority. Let us try to understand these things. Interesting cheez hai, please try to understand these things. RBI says that something will be acceptable as 2000 rupees note. Something will be acceptable. A new 2000 rupees note, This note is issued under the legal power of RBI, number one. This note is issued in market. This note is issued in market only when RBI acquires assets against this note, and this note is issued as a liability, that is a promise to repay the printed value, When a 2000 rupees is introduced in the economy, this 2000 rupees cannot be introduced simply by printing it on a piece of paper and sending it into the economy. 2000 रुपए का नोट, कोई सा भी नोट, any note cannot be introduced in the economy simply by way of printing and injecting it in the economy. कि ऊपर से बारिश कर दी नोटों की और सरकार को दे दिए पैसे, बारिश नहीं करी, सरकार को दे दिए पैसे, किसी और को दे दिए. It cannot be introduced just like that. This 2000 rupees note will be introduced only when RBI buys something from this 2000 rupees. RBI will have to purchase some asset from these 2000 rupees, only then it will enter into the market. Note has been printed at a printed press. Number one, RBI की printing press है, वहां पे currency note print हुआ. Now, that note will be introduced in the economy only when RBI buys some designated asset from that note. It can buy gold from that note, it can buy government bonds from that note, it can buy foreign currency from that note. Some other assets also, but usually these are the assets. For example, RBI buys gold from market. आरबीआई ने नोट प्रिंट किए वर्थ 10 करोड़ रुपीस, 10 करोड़ रुपए के नोट प्रिंट किए हैं, 2000 रुपए के नोट टोटल 10 करोड़ रुपीस के प्रिंट किए हैं. These 10 crore rupees will not be introduced in the economy out of thin air. They will be introduced in the economy only when RBI issues them by buying assets against them. RBI will buy some assets. Let's say RBI buys golds from the market for 10 crore rupees, and now this 10 crore rupees of new notes, new currency will enter into the market. So promise जो RBI ने किया है, that RBI is saying that this 10 crore rupees, this 2000 rupees note which is part of this 10 crores can be acceptable for giving goods worth 2000 rupees, will only be acceptable to somebody else when RBI is buying something of real worth from this 2000 rupees. RBI ने अब गोल्ड खरीद लिया है 2000 रुपए से. So RBI has gold. You have that 2000 rupees note. And therefore, now RBI has something which is really worth, that is some asset against this note which has been introduced in the economy. So RBI के पास now something exists of real value against every currency note which is there in the economy. So RBI will have to buy some assets. This is the reserve system. Second, not just it has to buy assets, but at the same time, that piece of paper, that currency note will have to carry a promise by a certain authority, RBI governor. पढ़ो currency note के ऊपर, if there is a note lying near you, see what is written there. I promise to pay the bearer a sum of 100 rupees. क्या लिखा है? I promise to pay the bearer a sum of 100 rupees. It is not written, I promise to pay the bearer a sum, I promise to pay the bearer gold worth 100 rupees. I promise to pay the bearer government bonds worth 100 rupees. I promise to pay the bearer a sum of 100 rupees. This is what is written on the currency note. मैं धारक को 100 रुपए देने का वादा करता हूं. It is written on that currency note. That currency note is like a promise that RBI governor is giving. If you present this note to me, I will give you value worth 100 rupees. अगर आप वो 100 रुपए मेरे पास लेके आओगे, if you bring that 100 rupees note to me, then I will pay you 100 rupees in return. What will you bring to RBI governor? You will bring a currency note. What is written on that currency note? It is written that I promise to pay the bearer a sum of 100 rupees. Anybody who is bearing, who is possessing that note, I promise to pay him or her a sum of 100 rupees. You go to RBI's office and you say, pay me 100 rupees because you have promised on this currency note. So RBI governor is now responsible to pay 100 rupees to you. What is meant by this promise? इस promise का मतलब क्या है? That I promise to pay the bearer a sum of 100 rupees. What is meant by this promise? क्या इस promise का मतलब है RBI will bring out gold from its reserves and give you gold worth 100 rupees? क्या इस प्रॉमिस का मतलब है दैट आरबीआई गवर्नर विल टेक यू टू एन एप्पल शॉप एंड से बोलेगा 100 रुपए के एप्पल खरीद लो और एप्पल वेंडर को बोलेगा इनको 100 रुपए के एप्पल दे दो? Does it mean RBI will give you government bonds worth 100 rupees? What does it mean when we say that I promise to pay the bearer a sum of 100 rupees? It simply means the following. RBI governor will not give you gold. RBI governor will not buy apples for you or will not enforce anybody to buy to sell apples to you. RBI governor will not give government bonds to you. Nothing of this sort is going to happen. What is meant by this promise? What is the sanctity of this promise? This promise means that the RBI governor will give an assurance to you that you take this note to somebody else and I will make sure that that somebody else accepts it. There is a guarantee given by me. आप एक काम करो, इस नोट को उसके पास ले जाओ, take this note to that apple vendor. अगर वो accept नहीं कर रहा है, you give this note, you take 100 rupees from him, he will come back to me and then I will send him to that ice cream vendor. मैं उसको बोलूंगा तुम आइसक्रीम वेंडर के पास जाओ और उससे आइसक्रीम ले लो, अगर वो एक्सेप्ट नहीं करेगा तो मेरे पास आ जाना. Give this 100 rupees note to ice cream vendor, ask ice cream vendor if he doesn't trust you, ask ice cream vendor to come with this note to me. I will ask somebody else to accept this note from this ice cream vendor. I promise to pay the bearer a sum of 100 rupees. What does it mean? I promise to enforce the value of these 100 rupees. I promise to make sure that these 100 rupees are acceptable in the economy. I promise to pay the bearer a sum of 100. Doesn't mean I will give you gold or government bond or I will give you dollars or I will buy apples for you. No, it simply means I am responsible to enforce the promise which is written here by ensuring that everybody in the economy accepts this. Therefore, you give 100 rupees, you will get value worth 100 rupees. Somebody else gives 100 rupees, he will get value worth 100 rupees. Somebody else to somebody else, that person will get value worth 100 rupees. This is meant by this term promise. I promise to pay the bearer a sum of 100 rupees. I would like to demonstrate my capability to enforce this value. If somebody doesn't trust, I will demonstrate my capability. मैं बोलूंगा कि भाई आप इसको accept करो. This will be acceptable by somebody else. This is meant by this term promise. Is issued as a liability. That is a promise to repay the printed value. This is how RBI prints money and introduces money into the economy. RBI prints money by the authority given to it under RBI Act. But RBI maintains its legitimacy by ensuring that whatever money is introduced in the economy is introduced by buying assets against it. And same time, RBI ensures that whatever currency note is introduced in the economy is introduced as a promise to repay the printed value if that note is presented to RBI in future. This makes people trust currency. I will be ready to accept 100 rupees and sell something actually worth 100 rupees to you when I know अगर मैं RBI के पास जाऊंगा तो RBI के पास कुछ रियल में चीज है इसके अगेंस्ट. RBI can give me something. I know at least that RBI has something in its vault against this. Secondly, because I know RBI has something in its vault, RBI will tell me कि भाई एक काम करो इसको किसी और के पास ले जाओ. That person also knows that I have something in my vault. I will not give to you what is there in my vault, but everybody knows that there is something in my vault. Therefore, everybody knows that I am capable to enforce this value. I will not give you, but everybody knows that I am capable. सबको पता है मेरी capability है. I am promising you and I am capable. This will instill legitimacy. This is what instills trust in currency. This is how RBI creates money. RBI का money creation ऐसे होता है. RBI creates money like this. RBI's money creation happens like this. First, it prints currency. Second, it buys assets. against that currency. Example, it buys gold, it buys government bonds, it buys dollars, etc. RBI buys assets against the printed currency. And third, the printed currency note, the prince's printed currency note acts as a proof of or a promise of RBI's liability, because ultimately it is a piece of paper which is being used to exchange some real goods. A currency note, 100 rupees currency note, is being used to exchange, let's say, gold, something actually worth. Now gold comes with RBI, and this is, let's say, gold vendor, jeweler, मान लेते हैं ये jeweler है कोई. RBI gives this 100 rupees note to gold jeweler, and this gold jeweler gives 100 gold to RBI. 100 rupees have been introduced in the market, and gold has been extracted from the market by RBI. RBI now has gold, market now has 100 rupees. Ab jeweler is 100 rupees को, jeweler now has 100 rupees, note. Jeweler can use these 100 rupees to, let's say, buy apples. Apple wala will now have 100 rupees, jeweler will now have apples. This apple wala will now be able to buy ice cream, and so on and so forth. This 100 rupees note enters into the circulation in the economy. This is how RBI creates money. Money creation by RBI. Let's quickly have a look at balance sheet of RBI. RBI की balance sheet. RBI's balance sheet. उसके बाद break देते हैं. RBI's balance sheet. Balance sheet of any organization, any industry, any firm, balance sheet of any firm consists of two parts, assets and liabilities. दो parts होती हैं balance sheet में, asset और liability. Asset is what you own, O-W-N, own. Liability is what you owe. कितना owe करते हो, that is what liability is. Asset is what you own, आपके पास क्या है, and liability is what you owe, आपको कितना वापस करना है. Usually assets and liabilities must be equal. दोनों साइड equal होनी चाहिए, assets and liability. If there is a difference, then that is called as net worth. अगर assets आपके ज्यादा हैं as compared to liabilities, you have some net worth. आपकी कुछ intrinsic खुद की value है, that is your net worth. ठीक है? So assets and liabilities बराबर होते हैं usually. Assets of RBI, liability of RBI. What is RBI's liability? The biggest liability of RBI is currency in circulation. Or CC. Why? Because every currency note has printed on it that I promise to pay the bearer a sum of 100 rupees. हर currency note के ऊपर whatever the sum is, it is printed. So every currency note is acting like a promise made by RBI governor to the general public who is holding that currency note. That means if entire public with all the currency note they have, they go to RBI's office, RBI's governor will be responsible to pay to each one of them a sum of 100 rupees or whatever जिसका भी note आपने present किया है. So currency in circulation is the biggest liability. In fact, on RBI's balance sheet, this is the biggest part of RBI's liability. और क्या है liability? What else can be part of liabilities? What do you owe? Deposits with RBI. Now RBI also acts as a banker to banks, as a banker to governments, central and state. Banks are our banks. For people, for citizens, banks act as banks, as the name suggests, obvious. Banks हमारे banks हैं. But we are not allowed to bank with RBI. We cannot put our deposits in RBI. We cannot borrow money from RBI directly. For that, there are banks. हम banks से पैसा लेते हैं, banks में जमा करते हैं. लेकिन बैंक्स का बैंकर कौन है? इफ बैंक्स हैव टू डिपॉजिट मनी, आरबीआई प्रोवाइड्स दैट फैसिलिटी. Banks can deposit money with each other. PNB can deposit money with ICICI Bank. ICICI can deposit money with HDFC Bank. They can deposit money with each other. But RBI also provides them with this facility. RBI provides banking facilities of lending, borrowing, keeping money, keeping your deposits of banks with RBI. So RBI provides this facility. So money can be deposited with RBI, not by general public like us, but by banks and governments. So money which banks keep with RBI, that would be, पैसा किसका है? Money which you have kept in the bank, वो पैसा, that money belongs to you. It is money owned by you, but you have kept that money in bank. So it is your money, and bank has taken possession of that money. You have allowed bank to take possession of that money, but it is bank's liability. आपका जो पैसा है, your money that you have kept in bank is your money. It's bank's liability. Similarly, money which the bank keeps in RBI. RBI में पैसा रखा है, लेकिन वो पैसा है किसका? पैसा तो बैंक का है. तो आरबीआई की जिम्मेदारी है, अगर बैंक मांगे, if bank wants, then RBI will have to return that money. So that becomes a liability of RBI. Banks deposits with RBI. Similarly, governments deposits with RBI. Central government can keep some deposits with RBI. They can maintain some account. State governments can maintain some account. So this is deposits with RBI. Again, these are also part of liabilities of RBI. आरबीआई को ये भी वापस करना है. करेंसी इन सर्कुलेशन एनीबडी प्रेजेंट्स, दैट इज अ लायबिलिटी. डिपॉजिट्स विद आरबीआई, बैंक्स डिपॉजिट, गवर्नमेंट डिपॉजिट, दैट आर आल्सो एग्जांपल ऑफ लायबिलिटीज ऑफ आरबीआई. व्हाट आर द एसेट्स ऑफ आरबीआई? व्हेन आरबीआई इंट्रोड्यूस्ड करेंसी इन सर्कुलेशन, व्हेन आरबीआई इंजेक्टेड करेंसी इनटू द मार्केट, आरबीआई वुड हैव बॉट सम एसेट इन रिटर्न और नॉट? अभी हमने डिस्कस किया. व्हाट इज द मोस्ट कॉमन एसेट दैट आरबीआई बाइज when it introduces currency in circulation? That most common asset is government bond. RBI buys government bond, and from that RBI gives money to the government. Central government wants to borrow 10,000 crore rupees. It will print government bonds. That I want, bond बता चुके हैं क्या है? Debt instrument, simply a proof that somebody has given money to somebody else. Central government wants to borrow 10,000 crore rupees. It will print bonds worth 10,000 crore rupees. It can go to the market. It can come to me. It can go to SBI. It can go to PNB. It can also go to RBI. RBI के पास भी जा सकती है. Usually, when RBI has to introduce currency in the market, RBI usually buys government bonds. It may buy them directly from government. It may buy directly from me. मेरे से भी, if I have government bond, RBI will simply say कि भाई जो है मुझे government bond बेच दो और मेरे से पैसे ले लो. So government bonds is one of the biggest assets in the balance sheet of RBI. Other asset which RBI can buy gold. Gold भी खरीद सकता है RBI. RBI can buy foreign government bonds. RBI can buy foreign currency or forex. Other assets of RBI lending by RBI. RBI can lend money, just like it takes deposits from banks and governments. It can also lend money to banks and governments. Bank और government को lend भी कर सकता है money. Government bond is a representation of money borrowed by the government, but इसको हमने चलो मान लेते हैं, this is money which RBI has. Government bond which it has bought from the market, इसको हम मान लेते हैं money which RBI has explicitly lent to the government. Money which RBI has lent to the banks. So all these are examples of assets. ये RBI के assets हैं. Everything which is owned assets हम discuss कर चुके हैं. Concept of bonds से we have understood what assets are. So this is asset side of RBI's balance sheet. This is liability side of RBI. I mean, in no way this is exhaustive. इसमें बहुत सारी entries हो सकती हैं, but it gives us an idea that what is RBI's liability and what are RBI's assets. RBI will introduce currency in circulation by buying some asset. It can buy government bond, it can buy gold, it can buy foreign government bonds, it can buy foreign currency. Other assets of RBI can lend to the banks, it can lend to government, things like that. So these are assets, these are liabilities. What you owe to others and what you own, what is your own owning, what is owned by you. Before I give break, I'll have to complete this topic. So again, करीब 5-10 मिनट और लगेंगे. If you look at liabilities, अगर हम RBI की liabilities को देखें, liabilities of RBI have a peculiar property that they are almost zero cost or very low cost. Liabilities of RBI. If I borrow money from bank, that is my liability. बैंक का asset है और मेरी liability. If I have borrowed 10 lakh rupees from bank, it is my liability. I owe bank 10 lakh rupees. I have to return 10 lakh rupees to the bank. Bank has lent me 10 lakh rupees, so it is bank's asset. वो बैंक का अपना पैसा है, this is bank's asset. If I have borrowed money, I will be paying interest. Let's say I pay an interest of 8% on the money which I borrowed. So interest which I pay is 8%. That is cost of liability. Cost of owing money to somebody else. RBI की liability की cost देखें जरा. RBI's liability is mostly consisting of currency in circulation and deposits with RBI, which are with banks and government. If you realize about this currency in circulation, which is the major part of RBI's liability, think about it. एक 100 रुपए का नोट, 100 rupees note was printed in the year 1980. And on that 100 rupees note was written, I promise to pay the bearer a sum of 100 rupees. Let us assume that in 2021 also that note is a legal tender. That note is perfectly valid in 2021 as well. Let us assume that it has not been made out of circulation. It has not been demonetized. Let us assume कि वो जो 100 रुपए का नोट 1980 में था, it is still there. It is still acceptable as a legal tender. In 2021, what is written on that currency note? Still the same thing is written, that I promise to pay the bearer a sum of 100 rupees. 1980 में भी यही लिख, नोट तो चेंज नहीं हो गया ना, नोट तो वही का वही है. I promise to pay the bearer sum of 100 rupees written on a note printed in 1980. I promise to pay the bearer sum of 100 rupees on the same. It's exactly the same note, so obviously the note has not changed. Liability of RBI in 1980 was 100 rupees and liability of RBI in 2021 is also 100 rupees. So 40 years have passed and RBI has borne no interest on its liability. 1980 में भी आरबीआई को 100 रुपए ही वापस करने थे और 2021 में भी उस नोट के अगेंस्ट दैट पर्टिकुलर नोट इन 1980 आरबीआई हैड टू रिटर्न 100 rupees and in 2021 also RBI still has to return 100 rupees. So what is the cost of this liability for RBI? Absolutely zero or not? Absolutely zero. RBI had printed a currency note, introduced that note into the economy and promised to pay a sum of 100 rupees. It did not promise to pay any interest on that. So liability of RBI as far as currency in circulation is concerned is completely zero cost. It doesn't pay any interest on this liability. No interest is paid by RBI on its liability, the major part of liability, which is the currency in circulation. I promise to pay the bearer sum of 100 rupees, चाहे वो 1950 का नोट हो, चाहे वो 2021 का नोट हो. In both cases, RBI will be paying only 100 rupees. But the point is, value of 100 rupees in 1980 was very high. Value of 100 rupees in 2021 is very less as compared to its value in 1980. RBI is not bearing any interest. So cost of currency liability because of currency circulation is zero. What about other liabilities? Deposits with RBI. Banks keep their deposits with RBI. There are some deposits on which banks will earn interest. There are some deposits on which banks will not earn any interest. Some deposits, we'll see what those deposits are, on which banks will not earn any interest. Deposit which banks keep with RBI, some part of that on those banks will not earn any interest. That is, RBI will not pay any interest. On some other deposits, RBI will pay an interest, but that would generally be low. Interest which RBI pays to government, again very low. अपने पास डिपॉजिट रखने के लिए, टू कीप डिपॉजिट विद इटसेल्फ, आरबीआई पेज अ वेरी लो इंटरेस्ट रेट टू बैंक्स, टू गवर्नमेंट. बहुत ही कम इंटरेस्ट पे करता है आरबीआई. We'll see what that interest is, but for the time being, understand that it is low. So liabilities are either zero cost or zero and low and very low. So liabilities are very low cost for RBI. So what RBI owes, its value does not increase. It doesn't have to pay any interest or very less interest. This is very low cost for RBI. Now let us have a look at assets of RBI. RBI के assets देखते हैं. RBI का asset है government bond. Now government bond pays interest. Interest earning asset. Gold appreciates. Gold की value appreciate होती है usually. Gold की value in 1980 versus gold की value in 2021, it has appreciated a lot. So gold जो आपने 1980 में खरीदा था, you purchased gold worth 100 rupees in 1980. Today, same gold is worth 1000 rupees. But the currency note against which that gold was purchased is still worth 100 rupees only. 100 रुपए का gold खरीदा, you printed a 100 rupees note in 1980. You purchased gold worth 100 rupees in 1980. Now that note is in circulation, it is here. And gold is lying with you, it is here. Value of gold today is very high. 100 rupees ka gold is now become 1000 rupees ka gold. Whereas that currency note against which this gold was bought, abhi bhi wo 100 rupees ka hi 100 rupees ka note hai. Zero cost but appreciating asset. Foreign government bonds, they will also pay interest. ये भी interest pay करेंगे. Indian government bonds usually ज़्यादा interest pay करेंगे. American government bonds कम interest pay करेंगे. Foreign currency assets, they will also appreciate. In 1980, when you purchased dollars, $1 was worth 20 rupees. You printed 20 rupees and purchased $1. You had $1. Today, $1 is worth 70 rupees. So, आपके पास जो $1 था, now it is worth 70. जैसे gold appreciate हुआ, 100 rupees का gold 1000 का बन गया, 20 rupees का $1, 70 rupees का $1 बन गया. So, foreign currency assets, they will also appreciate. RBI lends money to banks and governments, and on this RBI charges interest. इसके ऊपर interest charge करता है RBI. RBI will charge an interest. And the interest charged by RBI is always greater than interest paid by RBI. Always. By definition, it is always greater than interest paid by RBI. RBI will pay always 1% less. 1% less interest pay करता है as compared to the interest that it earns on its lending. Bank को अगर lend कर रहा है RBI, so RBI will say pay me 7%. If bank को pay कर रहा है RBI will not pay more than 6%. Same thing with the government. So RBI earns an interest, charges interest on the lending that RBI does. So if we have a look at RBI's assets, assets are income earning or appreciating in nature. फॉरेन करेंसी एसेट्स जो है, मान लो ठीक है, टुडे आज 70 है, कल को 60 हो जाता है, तो थोड़ा सा डेप्रिशिएशन हो सकता है. बट लार्जली एसेट्स आर आइदर इंटरेस्ट अर्निंग और एप्रिशिएटिंग. मोस्टली अर्निंग इन नेचर है. सो विदाउट डूइंग एनीथिंग, just by virtue of performing its function as being the supreme monetary authority in the economy, performing its function as being responsible to print currency note and enforce that particular value, performing its functions, by virtue of performing its functions, RBI earns income accidentally. RBI is not earning income because it is indulged in some commercial business. RBI कुछ प्रोड्यूस नहीं कर रहा है, कुछ सेल नहीं कर रहा है. RBI is not तेल निकाल रहे हैं, कोई नया नेचुरल रिसोर्स बना रहे हैं, कुछ सर्विस प्रोवाइड. RBI is not producing any good or service of market transaction. RBI is simply performing its function, which is of printing currency, enforcing the value of currency, ensuring that currency remains acceptable. RBI is doing its duty, and while performing its duties are of such nature that RBI earns income every year because of its nature of duties. It bears low cost on its liabilities and it earns either interest or appreciation of its assets. And that is why RBI, because there is income here and low cost here on liabilities, that is why RBI earns a net income every year. RBI earns some net income every year. I hope this is clear to everybody. RBI's balance sheet. How does RBI earn incomes? How does RBI create money? Money creation of RBI देखा हमने पहले. We looked at how does RBI create money. RBI prints money, introduces into the market by virtue of by buying assets. It makes a promise that I will pay to the bearer a sum of whatever currency note is there. And then we had a look at RBI's income model. We looked at RBI's balance sheet. What are the assets? What are the liabilities of RBI? And how does RBI make money? ठीक है? Let us take a break. 7:15 होने वाले हैं. Let's take a break of about 5 minutes. We'll come back again and then we'll continue a discussion from here. From here, we'll move on to money creation process by banks. देखूंगा मैं if there are questions that need to be answered. I hope your questions, queries would be clear. Still, I think there are many people who are asking some questions. I'll answer them after the break. ठीक है? Break के बाद answer करता हूँ. Let's take a break of about 5 minutes. We'll meet at 7:20. 7:20 पे मिलते हैं. Till then, please absorb whatever has been discussed. Let us start. Let us carry on with our discussion. Many questions. I'll answer those questions. एक question मैंने answer कर दिया है. अंशुल, your question I have answered on chat. Please have a look at the answer there. So I think that sufficiently answers your question. बाकी questions I'll answer. सबसे पहले let me answer एक श्रद्धा का question था regarding which I said that थोड़ा सा it is हटके national income accounting का था. Shraddha, it is quite easy. Your question is, Shraddha is asking, anybody, everybody, please kindly pay attention here also. Shraddha is asking कि how do we differentiate, how do we prevent double counting in measurement of GDP, in measurement of output? There are two ways to preventing double counting, as Shraddha has said, and as we have discussed in the class in our discussion on national income accounting. Two ways. One is that you measure the value of only final goods, or you measure the value added of all goods. Shraddha, I think you are confused between the concept of value added versus value. When we add up the value of final goods, what does it mean? We are simply adding what is the total value of a final good. जैसे ये मोबाइल फोन है, what is the total value of this mobile phone? Add up the value of all the mobile phones produced in the economy, because this is a final good. That will be the total output of the economy. Complete value, ये $1,000 का है या 1 लाख रुपए का है या 10,000 रुपए का है, whatever the value is, you add up the value of this mobile phone, complete value, versus you want to calculate the output by measuring value added. तो value added क्या है कि एप्पल ने ये जब फोन बनाया, it purchased goods worth $500, added its own worth of $500 and then sold it for 1,000. So 500 के goods खरीदे, input, and 1,000 का output. So therefore net value is 500. The value added by Apple is 500. So in this case, you add only value added. When you are adding value added of all the goods, be it final or intermediate, सारे goods की value add करनी है, then you add intermediate and final goods. In this case, you sum up only the value added. If you want to calculate the output by only taking into account final goods, you sum up the final value of that good, that is $1,000 and not $500, which is the value added. Okay. Webov का क्वेश्चन है, सर व्हेन आरबीआई परचेजेस देन इट हैज टू पे ऑल्सो. तो फिर वो कैसे पे करती हैं अगर करेंसी मार्केट में सर्कुलेट करानी है तो? हाउ डज आरबीआई पे? आरबीआई सिंपली सेज दैट आई प्रॉमिस टू पे द बियरर अ सम ऑफ 100 रुपीज. सिंपली आरबीआई सेज दिस. आरबीआई डजंट एक्चुअली, हाउ विल आर, यही आपका क्वेश्चन है ना? योर क्वेश्चन इज हाउ विल आरबीआई पे? Currency note has a value printed on it worth 100 rupees. But that note is not actually worth 100 rupees. Note is being used to settle a transaction worth 100 rupees, but that note itself is not worth 100 rupees. This thing is clear. We have discussed this aspect. First. Second, RBI is promising that I promise to pay the bearer a sum of 100 rupees. How will RBI pay the bearer a sum of 100 rupees? Think about it. As I explained, RBI will actually not pay. It will never pay the bearer a sum of 100 rupees. As I said, RBI will not pay gold. RBI will not give you government bond. RBI will not give you anything. नया करेंसी नोट भी नहीं देगी आपको आरबीआई उसके बदले में. आप पुराना लेके जाओ, आरबीआई के पास बोलो कि जो है पे मी 100 रुपीज. For this reason, RBI will not give you new 100 rupees note as well. It will simply tell you that this note can be exchanged by you with anybody else and you can get goods worth 100 rupees. Ab jao, and it is my duty to ensure that this note is exchanged by you for goods worth 100 rupees. I will ensure कोई और आपको इसके बदले में 100 रुपए की चीज दे दे. I will ensure this. This is how RBI actually demonstrates. This is how RBI actually, quote unquote, indirectly pays to that person. It is not paying anything from its vault. It is not even giving you anything in return. It is simply demonstrating its capability to enforce its promise. Is this clear? आपका objective क्या था? Your objective is that this piece of paper should buy you goods worth 100 rupees. That is what your objective is. या आपका ऑब्जेक्टिव आरबीआई के पास जाके आरबीआई को परेशान करना थोड़ी ना. योर ऑब्जेक्टिव इज यू हैव 100 रुपीज नोट, व्हाट कैन दिस 100 रुपीज नोट बाय फॉर यू? दिस इज व्हाट योर ऑब्जेक्टिव इज. भाई, इज इट एक्चुअली वर्थ 100 रुपीज विच इट इज प्रॉमिसिंग? आरबीआई इज सेइंग दैट प्लीज ट्रस्ट मी, इट इज वर्थ 100 रुपीज. आरबीआई इज सेइंग यू टेक इट टू एनी प्लेस and that place will accept it and give you goods or services worth 100 rupees in reality. This is how RBI is paying you. It's not actually paying you, but it is indirectly making somebody else pay you. ठीक है? आदित्य का क्वेश्चन है नेक्स्ट. प्राइस ऑफ गोल्ड. दिस इज अ वेरी इंटरेस्टिंग क्वेश्चन. आई थॉट दैट दिस क्वेश्चन शुड बी एड्रेस्ड. अच्छा क्वेश्चन है, बाकी लोग प्लीज क्वेश्चन सुनना. वेरी इंटरेस्टिंग क्वेश्चन. आदित्य इज आस्किंग, प्राइस ऑफ गोल्ड चेंजेस डेली. How will RBI decide how many notes of 2000 rupees to print against 100 grams of gold? Very good question. If today it costs 10,000 rupees per gram, but suddenly it increases to 15,000 rupees per gram, so how will RBI decide how many notes to print? I hope everybody, this first part of question. Second, if the government asks RBI to print 10,000 rupees, will RBI print notes worth rupees 10,000 first and buy gold worth 10,000 rupees later, or will it ask the government to give gold worth 10,000 first and then print rupees 10,000? So I'll explain these two things. बताता हूं, क्वेश्चन अगर समझ में नहीं आया तो I'll explain again. Everybody kindly listen. First question that Aditya has asked is this, that value of gold changes daily. So RBI decides that I have to print currency notes. How many currency notes will I print against gold? The answer is very simple. आप प्रॉब्लम को गलत तरीके से अप्रोच कर रहे हैं. आंसर इज वेरी सिंपल. प्रिंटिंग प्रेस में आरबीआई की तो कितने ही नोट प्रिंट हो सकते हैं. In printing press of RBI, there can be notes printed worth trillions of worth rupees. प्रिंटिंग प्रेस में प्रिंट करने में क्या है, वहां पे तो प्रिंट करने में 2 रुपए लग रहे हैं, 2000 का नोट प्रिंट हो जाएगा. RBI will take those currency notes to the market, and from market when it buys gold, it will be able to buy gold only at the price which is prevailing today. As simple as that. RBI is not deciding to print 2000 rupees notes against some value of gold which it has in mind. No. RBI has already printed so many notes. It will take those notes to the market and buy gold in return. At what rate it will buy? Simply at the price at which gold is trading in the market today. उस प्राइस पे RBI भी, जिस प्राइस पे मैं खरीदूंगा उसी प्राइस पे RBI खरीदेगा. RBI को हो सकता है थोड़ा डिस्काउंट मिल जाए क्योंकि मास लार्ज क्वांटिटी में खरीदेगा. Maybe RBI is not paying commissions to middlemen, therefore RBI might buy it. But ideally speaking, the rate which I am paying for gold will be the same rate which RBI pays for gold, which has to buy gold. The point is, RBI will buy gold, and buying gold is that event which will introduce currency in the market. It can be printed, it can be lying in RBI's vault, but it is not part of economy. RBI के पास तो प्रिंट होके 1000 करोड़ अरब खरब कितने रुपए की करेंसी हो सकती है, but it is not there in the economy. There is a difference between printing a piece of paper and that piece of paper having some value. यही तो हम इतनी देर से डिस्कस कर रहे हैं. That piece of paper worth 2 rupees, as long as it is there in printing press, it has no value. It will have value only when it comes in the market. When will it come in market? It will come in the market only when there are assets acquired against it. तभी वो मार्केट में आएगा. It will have value only when RBI governor has promised to enforce that value. I think this makes your doubt clear. Second part भी इससे clear हो जाएगा. If government says that we want 10,000 rupees, RBI will print money, government will print bonds, government will give bonds to RBI, RBI will give money to government. This is how exchange will take place between government and RBI. So पहले government bond print होंगे या पहले RBI की currency print होगी, it doesn't matter. RBI, think about it like this, RBI के पास तो currency printing press पूरे टाइम ही चलती रहेगी, but that money is worth nothing until it comes into the economy, until it finds its way into the economy. Next, Shubham's question. Savings money tend to increase in more tax. Savings money tend to increase in more tax, pay in context of middle class people who pay most of the tax. Is it true? Does it mean that people who invest in bonds tend to pay less tax? देखो, tax, please understand, Shubham and others also, if there is a similar question that others might have, tax is not paid on money. पैसे पे tax नहीं है. Tax is paid on, if you are talking about income tax, tax is paid on income. How much income do you earn? You are earning 50,000 rupees of income. You will be taxed on entire 50,000 rupees. Doesn't matter your transaction demand is 20,000, your speculative demand is 30, 20, 10, 0. You will be taxed on 50,000. One person decides to invest that money, 30,000 rupees into bonds. Another decides to keep it as such. Both will be paying same amount of tax on those 50,000. Point number one. Point number two. The person who decides to invest that money in bonds, हो सकता है जब वो उस बॉन्ड को बेचे, when he sells that bond, he purchased that bond for 30,000 rupees. Let's assume that when he sells it, the bond is worth 40,000 rupees. So he has made a gain, he has made a profit. उसने जो speculation की थी वो सही डायरेक्शन में गई. He invested 30,000 and now he is selling his investment for 40,000. So he has earned another income of 10,000. So he will be taxed on this 10,000 rupees extra. So उसको वो 10,000 पे भी tax देना पड़ेगा. A person who did not invest money, kept it simply with himself in the bank, he will not pay any other tax. He is paying inflation tax, जो हमने डिस्कस किया था. His money is losing its value because of inflation. That is different. But सरकार की तरफ से कोई और टैक्स नहीं लग रहा है उस पे. But this person, because he has earned 10,000 rupees, because he has sold his bond and made a capital gains there, he will be paying a tax on those 10,000 rupees as well. ठीक है, चलो नेक्स्ट. अंशुल का. अंशुल, I have answered your question. What is the difference in lending to the government between lending to the government and government bonds directly to government? I have answered this question, Anshul. I hope the answer would be clear to you. नेक्स्ट अमित का क्वेश्चन. सब प्लीज गिव नोट्स ऑन दीज. आई विल गिव नोट्स, डोंट वरी. मैं इसके नोट्स दूंगा, चिंता मत करो. आई नो आई हैव टू गिव नोट्स ऑफ दिस, डोंट वरी अबाउट इट. यश सर, वी नो दैट मनी इज लूजिंग वैल्यू. इट मीन्स दैट आरबीआई हैज टू प्रिंट मोर मनी ओवर टाइम, and for that they have to acquire more assets over time. That it means that after some time in future they will acquire most of Indian wealth. नहीं यश ऐसा नहीं है. No, that's not the case. No, RBI is, please understand, Yash and others as well, please understand, Yash is saying that money is losing value due to inflation, number one, and RBI will have to keep on printing money because it has to meet, let's say, demands of the economy. So does it mean that if it prints money and if it acquires assets against them, some time will come that RBI will acquire all the assets of the economy? No. Certainly not. RBI is not printing money with the objective of acquiring assets. समझो इस चीज को, जो मैंने बोला ना, RBI is earning income. Income which RBI earns is accidental. Income which RBI earns on its assets is not because RBI is in some process of buying and selling some goods or services. It is accidental to RBI's performance of its functions, of its duties. RBI is not printing money with the objective of buying assets. अगर assets buy करने का RBI का objective होता तो RBI print करके सारे assets खरीद लिया होता. But if that was the objective, nobody would have trusted in the currency. So currency फिर वो 2,000 रुपए का नोट 2,000 रुपए की वैल्यू एक्सचेंज नहीं करता. Why? Because then it would have lost its legitimacy. Legal force तो होती, but कोई legitimacy नहीं होती. Nobody would have accepted that 2,000 rupees note. Why would I accept it? Because simply because RBI can print, therefore it is printing. I will not accept it. RBI का बस चले तो RBI तो sometimes, many times when we were kids, we used to ask our parents this question. Maybe we did not get any answer. Probably we did not get a reliable answer from them. But many times we have this question in our mind or not, कि क्यों RBI पैसे print करके सबको दे क्यों नहीं देता है? Why does RBI simply not print money and give it to everybody? At least give it to those who need it. उनको पैसा दे दिया, सबको पैसा दे दिया, इसमें दिक्कत क्या है? दिक्कत क्या है समझ में आ रही है? What is the issue? What is the problem in RBI simply printing money and giving it to people? Loss of trust in the currency. If RBI simply prints money and gives it to people, why would I trust that 2,000 rupees note is worth 2,000 rupees? If RBI doesn't have assets worth 2,000 rupees, nobody will trust RBI that it can enforce its promise. So in order for RBI to enforce its promise, it must possess assets worth 2,000 rupees. Reserves. It must possess reserves worth 2,000 rupees or assets worth 2,000 rupees. Only then will people have a trust in RBI's capability to enforce its promise. कि भाई 2,000 रुपए से 2,000 रुपए की चीज खरीदी जा सकती है. 2,000 rupees can be used to buy goods worth 2,000 rupees. Only then. If RBI simply prints and throws money away in the economy, nobody will have trust in that currency. Why? Because now everybody knows RBI doesn't have money. Everybody will approach RBI and will say, insist, force, कि भाई no, give me 2,000 rupees worth of value now. RBI doesn't have that much value, and therefore that piece of paper will now become exactly a piece of paper, not currency, not something which is worth its salt. I hope you get this point. Yash, good that you asked. Good. अपलुव का क्वेश्चन है. अपलुव, आई थिंक आई एम सीइंग योर नेम फॉर द फर्स्ट टाइम. अच्छी बात है, पूछा करो सवाल. Why does RBI governor promise is not over coin? This means anyone can reject the coin as per his wish. Many people nowadays do not accept 10 rupees coin. देखो, coin के बारे में बताता हूं, coin क्या चीज है. Coins are, please understand everybody, the value of paper in a currency note. 2,000 rupees currency note का जो है, उसमें the value of paper or cloth is not 2,000 rupees. It's only 2 rupees. It costs 2 rupees to print that currency note. तो उसकी intrinsic value कुछ नहीं है, लेकिन वो 2,000 रुपए के लिए exchange हो रहा है. 100 rupees note has no intrinsic value, 1 rupees intrinsic value, but it is used to buy goods worth 100 rupees. लेकिन जो 1 रुपी कॉइन है या फिर 5 रुपीज कॉइन है और 10 रुपीज कॉइन है, it has certain intrinsic value which is closer to the value which is printed on that. 5 रुपए कॉइन में, in the coin of 5 rupees, the value of metal, it might not be 5 rupees exactly, but it is somewhere close to that. 2 रुपए की तो वैल्यू होगी ना मेटल की. And if you include transportation, storage and all those costs, it will come closer to 5 rupees. Exactly 5 रुपए नहीं होगी. It might be, it usually would be less than 5 rupees. Certainly it cannot be more than 5 rupees, because if it is more, then people will simply start melting coins and then selling it for a higher price. अगर 5 रुपए के, if value of 5 rupees coin, value of metal in 5 rupees coin is more than worth 5 rupees, I will get a 5 rupees coin from the bank, melt it and then sell the metal in the market and make a profit. So ज्यादा तो बिल्कुल नहीं हो सकती है, but हाँ, usually it is closer to that. In case of currency note, because the difference is huge, therefore in order to enforce the value, you need somebody to give that promise. In case of coin, you do not need anybody to give that promise. Difference समझ में आया? Why there is a promise on note and why there is no promise on the coin? Because in case of coin, you do not need anybody to promise. Clear? Is this clear? Coins are introduced in the economy more for the purpose of convenience of transaction, so that every value which can be there can be exchanged. अगर 7 रुपए, if something is worth 7 rupees, there must be available some combination of currency in the economy which will enable you to buy goods worth 7 rupees. So you need 7 rupees in denomination. How will you get it? You have 5 rupees coin and 2 rupees coin. With 10 rupees note, you cannot buy goods worth 7 rupees if there doesn't exist a 1 rupee coin and 2 rupee coin. So it is more for convenience. वैभव का follow-up question है, when RBI will print money and buys assets in the form of government bonds, what will RBI pay? If it pays, then how the currency will remain with RBI in order to give it to other banks? When RBI will print money and buy assets in form of government bonds, okay, what will RBI pay? RBI will pay currency. और क्या pay करेगा? Note pay करेगा ना? RBI has printed currency notes. Government has printed bonds, or there are bonds that exist in the market. RBI will buy bonds and give currency in return. RBI is buying from me. RBI will give me 100 rupees currency note and buy bond worth 100 rupees from me. If it pays, then how the currency will remain with RBI in order to give it to other banks? RBI के पास currency नहीं रहेगी. If some bank demands at a later date from RBI कि भाई जो है, I want some money, RBI may choose to print new currency and lend it to the bank then. Let's see how does RBI lend to bank. वो देखेंगे हम RBI बैंक को कैसे lend करता है. Second part of this we are yet to see. Money creation process by banking system we are yet to see. We'll see there that how does RBI lend to bank. उसके अंदर आ जाएगा. But as far as your question is concerned, it is, I think, answered. RBI will buy bond from me, pay currency to me. If banks want to borrow money from RBI, if RBI has some cash with it, RBI may lend from the same cash. If RBI doesn't have any cash with it, RBI may print currency and then give that currency to bank and buy some and take something in return from the bank. So bank से bond खरीद सकते हैं, bonds of bank. So RBI can lend money in this way to the banks. So this transaction certainly can happen. चलो. ललित का क्वेश्चन है, दिस आई रेड एंड आई आंसर दिस क्वेश्चन. विल काउंटिंग डिपेंड अपॉन डिमांड डिपॉजिट्स इन मेजरिंग मनी सप्लाई, नॉट लीड टू डबल काउंटिंग ऑफ मनी एज मनी डिपॉजिटेड इन बैंक्स विल अगेन सर्कुलेट इन द इकोनॉमी इन फॉर्म ऑफ नोट्स. आई विल एक्सप्लेन दिस. How will RBI infuse money into the economy? Ravi, yaar, this is something I've answered. ये तो मत पूछो यार, RBI, how will RBI infuse money into the economy? This is something that we have been discussing since past 1.5 hours. I mean, if there is any specific question that you have, I've answered so many questions that everybody has asked regarding this. Start ही हमने इसी किया था, RBI infusing money into the economy by buying assets. Please pay attention यार. I think this is something which I have already answered. ऐसे मत करो. चलो, कोई specific question हो रवि? If there is some specific question, please ask. I'll answer. I do answer. Sometimes to the so much anger of other students. Most of them leave the class while I'm answering questions because they don't like me to answer questions of students. But ऐसा मत करो यार. I've answered this many times. चलो, let's carry on with our discussion, everyone. So we discussed money creation process by RBI. Do not worry, I'll dictate notes to you. Please don't worry. अब ये पूरा टॉपिक मैं खत्म कर दूं, as in money creation process. Let me finish this money creation process, then I'll dictate notes to you. Today I think it will not be possible for me to dictate notes of this part because there is some part which is remaining that we have to discuss. Next class में I'll dictate notes and we'll carry on from there. ठीक है? Next class में notes dictate करता हूं. अभी थोड़ा सा इसके अंदर बचा है. Let me explain, please. So we have discussed how does RBI create money. We have discussed how does RBI creation का मतलब क्या है? Creation doesn't simply mean printing. Creation means introduction into the economy. Money will be money only when it comes into the economy. Otherwise, it is merely a piece of paper. So we have discussed how does RBI introduce or inject money into the economy, the printed notes. How do they become acceptable? They become acceptable, number one, by force of law, and number two, by legitimacy that RBI has. Legitimacy comes from RBI buying assets in return of currency notes, and number two, RBI being able to demonstrate by way of promise that I promise to pay the bearer a sum of whatever is written on the note. So this way RBI enforces its promise, its value, the value of currency notes. So this way is basically the way through which RBI prints money or introduces money into the economy. Now, we have discussed at the same time balance sheet of RBI. Balance sheet of RBI is assets and liability, and we have discussed what is in assets and what is in liabilities. We have discussed this. And we have discussed how does RBI earn income, because its liabilities are low cost or zero cost, whereas its assets earn income from RBI, for RBI. Assets either appreciate or they earn some income. यहां से आगे डिस्कशन कैरी आउट करते हैं. एक चीज फटाफट मैं आपको बता देता हूं. When you sum up the assets and liabilities, जब आप assets and liabilities को sum करते हो, I'll just introduce one term here. The sum of all the liabilities, total liabilities, I'll write it on a new page. Assets, liabilities. We have discussed what are the assets. Gold is one of the assets. Government bonds are assets. Foreign government bonds, these are assets. Forex is assets. Lending by RBI, this is asset of RBI, so on and so forth. Liabilities are, most importantly, CIC, currency in circulation, usually referred to as CIC. Deposits with RBI, deposits with RBI, deposits of banks, deposits of government. Maybe one more thing we missed out, but we can imagine borrowings by RBI. Borrowings, RBI borrow bhi kar sakta hai. Borrowings by RBI. RBI does borrow. In fact, RBI does borrow. We'll see. Banking में हम देखेंगे. Credit creation process of banks में देखेंगे. RBI does borrow from banks. RBI borrow भी करता है. जरूरत भी पड़ती है RBI को borrow करने की. जरूरत तो इतनी नहीं पड़ती, but yes, RBI does borrow. So all these are example of liabilities. Total liabilities. Total liabilities of RBI. These are total liability of RBI. The total liability of RBI is also called as monetary base. Monetary base, इसको हम बोलते हैं monetary base, or also sometimes called as high powered money. High powered money. I'll just introduce these terms, use these terms now. Total liability of RBI is also called as monetary base or high powered money. टोटल लाइबिलिटीज को हम मॉनेटरी बेस कहते हैं या फिर हाई पावर्ड मनी. रिमेंबर वो मनी प्लांट वाला एग्जांपल आई गिव यू, मनी प्लांट. आरबीआई इज दैट सीडलिंग. The money which RBI is introducing in the economy is that seed which grows into a tree, and now banks will further up this process of money creation. तो ये जो RBI की liability है, और essentially this currency in circulation which is the biggest part, money which has been introduced in the economy by RBI, this money, this entire liability which is largely consisting of currency in circulation, this is the money which RBI has introduced in the economy. RBI ने money जो economy में introduce किया है, this is that money, mostly 99% consisting of currency in circulation, 99% that. This money is called monetary base. The first amount of money or fresh money in economy, fresh money in economy, monetary base, also called as high powered money. Banks will do their thing. We'll see what that thing is. Banks will do their thing to increase this money even more. The process that banks do is called the money multiplier process. Money multiplier process. Money multiplier process. From this money, initial amount of money available in the market, from this banks will do something, and that something will lead to multiplication of this money into what is actually available in the market. ये मनी क्या है? मनी which was printed and introduced in the economy by RBI. From this money, banks will do something, and that thing, multiplication process, we'll see what that multiplication or credit creation process is. देखेंगे हम next class में, don't worry about it. But from this seed money, more money will be created. Let us take for example, let's say this is 10 rupees. From these 10 rupees, the total amount of money which is created in the economy would be, let's say, 100 rupees. 100 रुपए हो जाएगा. So 10 रुपए इंट्रोड्यूस किए और 10 को बैंक्स ने बना दिया 100 रुपए, 10 times this. So money multiplier process, we'll see what that multiplier process is. Money multiplier process will operate on what? On this seed money, on this high powered money, on this monetary base. इसको बोलते हैं monetary base. This is represented as capital M0. Capital M0. When we talk about measurement of money supply, we looked at M1, M2, M3, M4. M1, M2, M3, M4 were money available in the economy. Economy में कितना पैसा है? Money available in the economy will also consist of money which RBI has made available in the economy plus money which banks have made available in the economy. Money in the economy total कितना है? मान लेते हैं 100 rupees है. 100 rupees is the total money available in the economy. Now this 100 rupees consists of 10 rupees that were made available by RBI and 90 rupees that have been created extra by the banking system. As I said, we'll see how does banking system create. But 10 rupees introduced initially by RBI and 90 rupees added in the economy by banking system. Through multiplier process, credit creation process, this 10 rupees is called monetary base. This is also one of the measures of money supply. Here, money is being defined as only that money which is introduced in the economy by RBI. Very narrow definition, narrowest definition of money. Even it's not just narrowest definition, it's extremely narrow. बहुत ही ज़्यादा narrow definition है that we are counting only and only money introduced in the economy by RBI, the monetary base or the high powered money, represented as M0. So economy में, let's say there is only currency in circulation plus demand deposits, forget about time deposit, post office, उसको भूल जाओ. Let's say M1 is the only measure of money in the economy. सो M1 किसके बराबर है? 100 रुपीज के. मनी इन द इकोनॉमी in form of currency in circulation plus demand deposits with bank. Money in the economy is M1 100 rupees. Money printed by RBI in the economy is 10 rupees, which is M0. M0 is this money printed in the economy. Money multiplier यहाँ पे I'll just talk about this concept of money multiplier. Small m से represent करते हैं. We'll see in the next class what this is. Multiplier क्या है? 10 times 10. 10 times 10. 10 times the initial high powered money is the amount of money circulating in the economy. So money multiplier becomes 10. We'll see what money multiplier is in next class. Don't worry about it. We'll see in detail how does this money multiplier process begin and कैसे होता है, सब देखेंगे उस चीज को. But for the time being, let's understand the concept of M0, monetary base or high powered money. Money which has been introduced in the economy by RBI. RBI ने जितना introduce किया है उसको हम बोलते हैं monetary base. ठीक है? Okay. This is the first concept that I wanted to tell you. Second concept that I want to tell you, and after that we leave the class. उसके बाद छुट्टी कर देंगे. It's क्या समय हुआ है? It's already 1957. So just 5 more minutes and then I'll leave. Don't worry about it. This is the concept of monetary base or high powered money. The second concept that I wanted to tell you was regarding government. RBI's transfers to government. RBI's transfers to government. RBI's transfer to government. So I'll have to quickly draw it again. Assets and liabilities. There are some assets here. There are some liabilities here. Assets earn income or appreciate. Liabilities cost zero or very low. And therefore there is a net income for RBI. RBI earns a net income because of its operation. ये हम डिस्कस कर चुके हैं. Now quickly, just 5 more minutes. Please bear with me for 5 more minutes. Now there is a net income that RBI earns. Now this net income is called RBI's profit. It's called RBI's profit. इसको हम RBI profit बोलते हैं. Profit earned by virtue of RBI doing its duty, not because RBI is doing some commercial function. RBI is doing its duty. RBI profit क्यों earn कर रहा है? Because think about it, it is providing a service in the economy, and that service is to maintain trust in the currency. Maintenance of trust. RBI is providing the service of maintenance of trust in the currency. It is providing the service of introducing currency so that ease of transactions can be achieved. It is providing service of ensuring that people have enough money in their pockets so that they can buy things, sell things when they want. So RBI is performing this service, providing this service, maintenance of trust, providing currency, ensuring its value. This is what RBI is performing, and by virtue of these functions, RBI earns some income, which is called RBI's profit. What does RBI do with this profit? इस profit से RBI क्या करता है? Now usually this profit is very high in magnitude. बहुत बड़ा profit होता है हर साल जो RBI को होता है. By virtue of its functions, its essential function, usually RBI earns a lot of profit. What does RBI do with this profit? First thing that RBI does from this profit, first thing that RBI does is RBI does all its expenses from its own income, All of RBI's expenses are done from RBI's own income. क्या expenses हैं? For example, salary is done from RBI's own income. Salary pays to entire RBI staff, governor से लेके चपड़ासी तक, everybody, their salaries are paid by this net income from RBI. Everybody's incomes are paid from this RBI's operation. बहुत बड़ा profit होता है, हर साल होता है, and this is used to pay for all expenses, salaries, maintenance expenses of RBI, building है, उसकी electricity है, सफाई करानी है, all expenses of RBI are paid for by this profit only. Complete expenses. RBI is independent. It is not dependent upon any government budget. It is not dependent upon grants from Ministry of Finance to finance itself. It is self-dependent. It does all its operations from its own money. सबसे पहली बात. Second, after doing all its expenses from its own money, then next thing is RBI evaluates how much money it may need, in next year, to carry out its responsibilities. Please do not worry, I'll dictate notes to you of this entire thing. Please understand this first. सबसे पहले expenses निकालेंगे. Second thing, RBI evaluates how much money is required by us to carry out our responsibility. Next year, for example, there is some emergency situation that RBI has to, for example, buy bonds from the market. Immediately RBI को bonds purchase करने की जरूरत पड़ गई मार्केट से. अब bonds purchase करने की जरूरत, if there is some situation that RBI has to purchase bonds from the market, then that means RBI will need cash in hand. If RBI prints new money in the economy, to buy bonds, that will be inflationary in nature. Why? Because the total amount of money supply in the economy will increase if new money is printed. But if RBI has cash in hand is different from that money lying in printing press. Cash in hand means that money is now already part of economy, just that it is there with RBI. Difference समझ रहे हो कि नहीं? Difference between money lying in RBI's printing press versus money lying with RBI as cash. Difference इन चीजों में. Money lying in printing press is not yet part of the economy. But money lying with RBI in its own pockets as cash, as anything, is already a part of economy, just that it is there with RBI. RBI के पास है. जैसे मेरे पास पैसा है, वैसे ही RBI के पास भी कुछ पैसा है. So there's a difference between money lying in printing press versus money lying in vault of RBI. Cash lying in vault has already become part of economy because RBI has now purchased some assets, maybe, and therefore it sold some assets, therefore it has some money. But the point is that money is now already in circulation. But money lying in printing press is not in circulation. Money lying in printing press is not part of money supply, but money lying with RBI as cash is part of money supply. If RBI prints new currency in order to buy bonds, that will increase money supply or not? उससे money supply increase होगी. Why? Because now new money will be printed to buy government bonds from the market or any bonds from the market. Versus RBI uses existing money which it has to buy bonds from the market. In this case, will money supply increase? No, it will not. Why? Because money is introduced in the economy. Yes, by RBI is buying bonds, but this money is not newly printed money. This is simply money which existed before with RBI. वो money already exist करता था versus money जो vault printing press से निकाल के लेके आए हैं. वो money economy में नहीं था, ये money economy में already आ चुका था. Difference है. So if RBI has to buy bonds, what will it prefer? Will it prefer to print new money and increase money supply, which will become inflationary in nature, or will it prefer to buy bonds from? First, it will try to exhaust its own cash. अपने पास जो money है, उससे bonds खरीदेंगे ना. So RBI assesses what may be the requirement of money to perform our operations next year. Something else. RBI sees that supply of dollars in the economy is increasing. बहुत सारे dollars economy के अंदर आए जा रहे हैं. And if supply of dollars in the economy is increasing, that means dollar will become cheap. Why? Because dollar is now available in abundance. If dollar becomes cheap, that may affect our exports, imports, maybe negatively. हो सकता है negative effect हो. RBI is now assessing, okay, we need to buy dollars from the market. हमको dollars खरीदने हैं market से. So foreign exchange, forex, part of RBI's asset. So now RBI will need again rupees to buy dollars from the market. Where will it get these rupees from? Either it goes to its printing press, prints new money and buys dollars, or it resorts to money which already exists with it to buy those dollars. What will be preferable? Preferable would be to buy those dollars from existing amount of money rather than to print new money. Why? Because printing new money would be inflationary. So preference of RBI is to buy that money from existing amount. So RBI will assess कि अगले साल क्या रिक्वायरमेंट हो सकती है, what can be our requirement next year. How much money may be needed by us next year to carry out our operations. RBI will assess its requirements. Once RBI does this, RBI ने एक बार ये किया, सारे expenses set aside कर लिए and its requirements assess कर ली. Now whatever is left, third, whatever is left, let me call the total income of RBI as capital I. No standard notation, I'm just using it for this purpose. Whatever is left, कितना बचा है? I minus 1 and 2. Total income of RBI minus expenses minus how much it has evaluated it will need next year. Whatever remains with RBI is called RBI's surplus. इसको बोलते हैं RBI का surplus. This is called RBI's surplus. This surplus has been always transferred to the central government every year in toto, in completeness. 99.99% of this is always transferred. 0.01% नाम के for name sake कि भाई हमारी इनकम है हम अपने पास रखते हैं. We are not owned by anybody. For just for name sake, RBI keeps 0.01% with itself. But 100% मानो, RBI transfers whatever is left to the government. Why? Because RBI derives its powers from law made by the government. RBI Act 1934 central government का law है, as in pre-independence है, but anyways. So central government is not the owner, but the head. Let's say the head. It's not head. RBI is an independent body deriving its powers from RBI Act. That's fine. But we can think about it that central government is kind of the owner of it's not the owner. I'm using the wrong word here, but kind of central government एक तरीके से owner है. जैसे central government is the owner of railways, it is the owner of PSU banks, it is the owner of Steel Authority of India Limited. RBI is not SAIL, RBI is not Indian Railways. RBI is a completely different institution. It's not a commercial institution. It gets its power from an act. But it can be thought of that central government is the owner of RBI by virtue of being the MyBap in the country. So RBI transfers its entire surplus to the government every year. हर साल सर RBI सरकार को पूरा का पूरा surplus transfer कर देता है, whatever is. This is RBI's transfers to the government. Final 2 minutes. Evaluation of how much RBI requires money. कितना पैसा RBI को चाहिए. This evaluation is now done under a framework recommended by Bimal Jalan Committee. How much money will RBI need for its operations next year? First, earlier it used to be RBI had recommendations of Usha Thorat Committee. Then RBI had recommendations of, I think, Venkat Chaliya Committee. I'm forgetting किसकी recommendations थी उसके. तो different governors of RBI at different points of time recommended that how much money would be required by RBI. There is a framework to decide how much money will be needed. Today it is done on the recommendations of Bimal Jalan Committee's recommendation. Bimal Jalan Committee ने recommendation दिया था in 2018 that how much money does RBI need to set aside. Based on that committee's recommendation, RBI assesses how much money will be required this year. That much money plus expenses it keeps with itself. Remaining money it sends to the government entirely. This is RBI's transfers to the government. ये RBI के transfer है सरकार को. With this we have come to the end of this first part of money supply. In next class, whenever it is, we'll be discussing money creation by the banking system. How does banking system create money? I'll request you to please come to the class after having read the money creation from banking system from NCERT. One last thing. New NCERT. Today I happened to stumble across the revised NCERT. जो कि I think 2-3 साल पहले revise हुई है. I stumbled across that NCERT. That is also really good. हमारे टाइम की जो न्यू एनसीईआरटी थी जो हम रेफर करते थे, उस टाइम जो नई एनसीईआरटी आई थी अब वो ओल्ड हो चुकी है. हमारे टाइम की ओल्ड तो अब वेरी ओल्ड है, हमारे टाइम की जो न्यू थी अब वो भी ओल्ड हो गई है. नाउ देयर इज न्यू एनसीईआरटी इन द मार्केट सिंस पास्ट 2 years. आई हैपन टू स्टम्बल अक्रॉस इट टुडे. इफ यू सर्च ऑन गूगल, सुनो ध्यान से, if you download NCERTs from website of NCERT, you will download the latest version. If you search on Google NCERT money and banking, अगर आप सर्च करते हो NCERT money and banking, then the PDF that opens is the हमारे वाली new, आपके लिए old, the second version of NCERT. Let's say oldest, old and new. ठीक है, 3 वर्जन, ओल्डेस्ट, ओल्ड एंड न्यू. तो ओल्डेस्ट को तो पिक्चर से हटा दो, ओल्ड एंड न्यू, द प्रेजेंट वर्जन एंड द पास्ट वर्जन. इफ यू डाउनलोड फ्रॉम एनसीईआरटी वेबसाइट, यू विल डाउनलोड द लेटेस्ट वर्जन. बट इफ यू ओपन गूगल एंड सिंपली टाइप एनसीईआरटी मनी एंड बैंकिंग, द पीडीएफ दैट विल ओपन विल बी द ओल्ड वर्जन पीडीएफ. आप दोनों वर्जन से मनी एंड बैंकिंग चैप्टर पढ़ना, लार्जली द सेम बट थोड़ा सा ऑर्गेनाइजेशन डिफरेंट है. नई वाली में एग्जाम्पल्स बहुत अच्छे दिए हैं समझ आने के लिए, ओल्ड वाली में जो बेसिक कंटेंट है वो ज्यादा अच्छा दिया है. बोथ आर रियली गुड. इफ यू रीड बोथ, largely overlapping, read both the older one and the new one, read both, your understanding of this chapter, especially the credit creation process which we are going to study in next class, would be very elaborate, will be very good. So please दोनों से पढ़ लेना, अच्छा रहेगा. दोनों इंटरेस्टिंग है, दोनों में. नई वाली में एग्जांपल्स बहुत जबरदस्त दिए हैं. आई वाज रियली इंप्रेस्ड विद द वे इन विच दे हैव प्रेजेंटेड एग्जांपल्स. ओल्ड वाली में जो बेसिक कॉन्सेप्ट है थ्योरेटिकल वाला, वो ज्यादा अच्छे से दिया हुआ है. फाइन. सो इफ पॉसिबल रीड बोथ, otherwise read one, that would be sufficient. We'll carry on with this in the next class. So next class में I will dictate notes to you and then first I'll पहले notes dictate करूंगा इस चीज के जो आज हमने डिस्कस किया है, and then we'll move on to the credit creation process by banking system. ठीक है, चलो. Let me see, कोई क्वेश्चन है क्या? Any question? how that अच्छा, ये समीम, आई थिंक आई हैव एक्सप्लेन्ड कॉइन वाला पार्ट. आई हैव एक्सप्लेन्ड कॉइन वाला पार्ट तो मैंने एक्सप्लेन कर दिया ना. In the instant where there is sudden dip in the value of assets held by RBI, what would be the impact of same on the value of currency? So Advait, in the instance when there is sudden dip in the value of asset, for example, suddenly RBI के asset थे, suddenly gold prices dips, suddenly foreign currency price dips. So what will happen in those instances? Well, what is going to happen is RBI is going to earn lesser income then. Number one, so RBI कम income कमाएगा. RBI usually is not in loss, has never been in a loss. कभी loss में नहीं रहा है RBI. RBI always has sufficiently high amount of money. If one asset loses its value, then usually government interest जो होता है वो RBI is able to cover up. Anyways, what will simply happen is RBI has set aside money for exactly such instances. RBI evaluates how much money it may need next year to carry out its responsibilities. If value of assets dives down, value of asset जो revaluation, इसका एक पार्ट होता है जिसको बोलते हैं revaluation reserves, that in order to shield yourself from revaluation of assets, there is a part of this. I have not explained because it is not required. Revaluation reserves एक part है इसका, that how much money is needed by RBI. That is exactly for the purpose that in case value of assets dives down, RBI will have sufficient amount of money to tide over that situation. ठीक है, चलो और कोई सवाल? I will explain यार money multiplier Pushpendra, I'll explain next part. रघुराम राजन रेजिग्नेशन बताएंगे, रघुराम राजन रेजिग्नेशन क्यों हुआ था? I'll tell that also, don't worry about it. Will government pay any interest to the transfer? No, no, government will not pay any interest, Abu. Government will not pay any interest. That is money which is, this money is not borrowed by government. The money which is transferred is not borrowed by government. Please understand. ये money RBI ने transferred किया है, quote unquote willingly. Yes, it is willingly because it has been done all the time. आई मीन हमें मजे लेने में अच्छा लगता है, सरकार के मजे लेने में, सरकार को किसी ना किसी तरीके से डीमेन करने में अच्छा लगता है, बट लेट्स नॉट टॉक अबाउट दैट. This money has always been transferred since 1934 when RBI was constituted. Since then, every year, this excess money has always been transferred to the government. So, this is not money which is borrowed. This is money which is transferred. So, no interest liability arises on this. वैभव एक्सप्लेन कर दूंगा यार, मैं चिंता मत करो. लिक्विडिटी ट्रैप. चलो ठीक है एवरीबॉडी, टेक केयर, गुड नाइट, गुड बाय, वी विल सी ईच अदर इन नेक्स्ट क्लास. आई थिंक फ्रॉम नेक्स्ट वीक ऑनवर्ड्स आई विल हैव मोर क्लासेस विद यू. नेक्स्ट वीक से आई हैव बीन टोल्ड कि योर क्लासेस आर क्लब ऑफ हिस्ट्री विद सम अदर बैच, इसीलिए थोड़ा सा प्रॉब्लम हो रहा है. आई थिंक फ्रॉम नेक्स्ट वीक वी विल हैव मोर फ्रीक्वेंट क्लासेस, तो पेस भी उसके हिसाब से बढ़ जाएगा क्लास का. फाइन, तो नेक्स्ट वीक से करते हैं, ठीक है. गुड नाइट एवरीवन, वी विल सी ईच अदर नेक्स्ट टाइम, बाय बाय. अनस का क्वेश्चन, अरे यार अनस आप अगर यहां पे हो तो मैं बता देता हूं आपको. अनस अभी रुको. अनस अनुभव सिंह, सर एज यू सेड द वैल्यू ऑफ 100 rupees note which RBI printed in 1980 has been decreased in 2021, but then RBI issued that note in 1980. RBI must have bought some asset worth 100 rupees. Now the value of that asset has increased in 2021 from 100 rupees. So can we say that the liability of RBI changed to asset indirectly? Anas, liability has not changed because liability was in form of currency note. 100 rupees currency note जो था वो था liability. Asset तो asset है RBI का. Asset तो RBI purchased gold in return for that. Asset की value has increased but liability has remained the same. So liability has not increased, liability remains the same. This is in fact what lets RBI to earn these profits. Those currency notes which it introduced long time back, those currency notes still have exactly the same liability which was there 20 years, 40 years back. But the assets acquired them, they have increased in their value. Abhinav, sir, if RBI is able to print many notes as it wants, is it possible that those excess printed notes be invested in other countries and then fetch foreign currency? It may also increase the value of our currency. So why does RBI not print as many notes as it wants and then allow government to invest those currency in other countries where rupee can be exchanged? Abhinav, this is naturally not possible. In order to, imagine करो ना, हर एक कंट्री फिर तो ऐसा कर सकता है. If RBI can buy assets of other countries can also, they also have freedom to print their currency. They can also buy Indian assets. Value of currency is ultimately determined by the value that it holds in its backyard. The trust that people have in that currency. If there is no trust, if currency can be printed out of no real assets acquired against it, currency will lose its value. Okay? We'll understand currency crisis, exchange rates, we'll understand all these things. But I hope you get this point. ऐसा possible नहीं है जो आप बोल रहे हो. Abhishek, during demonetization, do the currency notes in the market loses its value, then did RBI return the assets of the same value or use them as profits? Well, during demonetization, it was expected by many people that RBI को काफी profit होगा. Assumption of profit was based on the fact that RBI will not receive some currency notes and therefore its liability to that extent will be extinguished. I'll repeat, demonetization के time में कुछ लोगों ने predict किया था. Some people said that RBI will make a windfall profit from demonetization. Why? Because they said they expected that RBI will not receive all the currency which is in circulation. And if RBI doesn't receive all the currency in circulation, that means जो currency नहीं receive RBI के पास and it stops being a legal tender, therefore to that much extent RBI's liability will be extinguished. खत्म हो जाएगी RBI की liability उस extent. मान लो 100 रुपए करेंसी सर्कुलेशन में थी और RBI के पास वापस केवल 90 रुपीज आई है, तो जो 10 रुपए नहीं आई RBI के पास, and because of demonetization it has no longer deemed to be a legal tender, so that 10 rupees is now piece of paper, no value of that. RBI is no longer liable to return those 10 rupees. So RBI will make a gain because liability कम हो जाएगी, assets उतने के उतने रहेंगे, RBI will make a gain. This was expected by many people. Obviously, this did not turn out to be true because RBI received almost every penny which was circulating in the market. ठीक है, चलो ठीक है एवरीबॉडी, गुड नाइट. रिमेनिंग क्वेश्चंस अगली बार पूछ लेना यार, बहुत सारे हो गए. आदित्य नेक्स्ट क्लास में पूछना प्लीज, आस्क इन नेक्स्ट क्लास. इट्स ऑलरेडी 8:21. नेक्स्ट क्लास में पूछना. फाइन. ललित, अरे यार ललित आपका क्वेश्चन रह गया. ललित प्लीज आस्क इन नेक्स्ट. रियली सॉरी, योर क्वेश्चन वाज रिगार्डिंग नेट डिपॉजिट्स बैंक्स वाला. दैट आई एम सॉरी, आई कंप्लीटली फॉरगॉट टू आंसर दैट. नेक्स्ट क्लास में पूछना, आई विल आंसर दैट. प्लीज आस्क, आई रिक्वेस्ट यू, प्लीज आस्क इन नेक्स्ट क्लास. दैट इज इंपॉर्टेंट, आई विल आंसर, डोंट वरी. बाय बाय. हाँ, जर्मनी की हाइपर इन्फ्लेशन वॉज ड्यू टू एक्सेसिव नोट प्रिंटिंग, बट दैट वॉज नॉट दी ओनली रीजन. बाउंडेड रैशनल. ठीक है, चलो बाय बाय, गुड नाइट एवरीवन.